Is there any veracity to this?
There is a little bit. The players were poached, but I think this is nothing new if you know how G2 operate.
Prepare yourselves for that one, ladies and
Because I
gentlemen.
probably won't be on the show. I think Vision Strikers are going to win the tournament. I just.
Ooh, okay.
I'm a traitor for saying this, but I do think NA is just the better region right now.
All right, nerds, what it do? Welcome back to Valoranting for the week of the 21st of November. We have churned through most of this year. I can't believe it's almost over, but the very best in the Valorant Canada's calendar is still to come. Holy crap, I haven't had my coffee yet this morning. What's up? I'm Mitch Leslie here with Van Sealy and Ryan Zentra. Ryan, thanks for joining us once again. Van's got his Tim Hortons, you Canadian fuck. Enjoy. You know, we speculated a bunch about how we expect rosters to do and yada yada. But we'll take a closer look now at the groups and the schedule have been released, plus the skins that look fantastic. We're going to be chatting to Danny as well, who was, if you recall, coach of Supermassive Blaze and is obviously was on Heretics prior to that. So quite a tenured coach in the European Valorant scene. And then we'll obviously talk about the tournament that did go down over the weekend. It's Game Changes EMEA, and you guessed it, it was G2 Gozen who came out with the honors, although there's like, you know, 3, 4, 5 teams that looked really, really good and very competitive into that tournament, which is very good to see. First of all, though, we can talk about champions. The first thing that I saw, though, was a grim. And I haven't warned our producer about this, but someone posted a photo of their breakfast from the quarantine zone. Now, so they're in hotels, but they have to quarantine, right? So I saw someone get this grim-looking fucking couple slices of cheese, bit of ham, bread roll looking fucking breakfast there. It looked like Fire Festival. I think someone likened it to Fire Festival's meals. But that looks a little bit austere, their quarantine conditions out there.
I think that's just a regular European breakfast, though. Because I remember in Rainbow Six, even like Laxin and like other talent or like or players were also posting their food as well when they were, I forgot, was it Paris? I think it was Paris.
Yeah.
Although he pulled out a molded fucking orange out of his bag, that's a different story. But outside of that, like the other stuff that you get for breakfast seems like pretty normal, like ham, slice of cheese, and bread. And you're
I guess maybe because it's in this fucking cardboard box thing.
Yeah, that too. But it's probably just because we're fucking American.
To the aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know, as the resident expert on quarantining in Berlin,
I thought we weren't talking about this, but okay. Let's go.
I mean, it's sort of par for the course. Like, from my understanding is that they're doing it out of a bubble, much like they did for Worlds. So, yeah, I imagine everybody's going to have to quarantine just a little bit. Whether, I mean, nobody wants an NALCQ again, to be fair. So, like, I think from the sounds of it, like, yeah, there's obviously going to be like bitching and moaning in some areas, as we'll go over with some aspects of it. But ultimately, if the event runs, that's the most important aspect of it. So we'll see. Yeah, breakfast in Germany is kind of ass as well anyway.
Yeah, so Chad agrees with me. It's a European thing. So we're just closed-minded being from North America because we're so privileged with just going to like all-you-can-eat breakfast with like pancakes and fucking like
that.
16 pieces of bacon and shit.
No. I mean, this is coming from someone who has like an egg white and fucking oats shake every morning. It's not that fun.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's how privileged you are, because that's even more expensive.
You fuck.
It's even more expensive. You want eggs? Yeah, can I have eggs without yolk? Sure, but that'll cost you $2 extra.
No, you just get it in a carton, bro. I'm not wasting anything. You can get cartons of egg whites. Not that expensive.
$3 for like a small carton anyways, where you can buy a dozen eggs for $2.
Maybe in Canada, because you guys have no fucking chickens left. I don't know why. You chase them out of the country as well.
Yeah, probably.
Another one of Justin Trudeau's crackpot ideas alongside his questionable fucking costume decisions.
All I'm saying is that the healthier you want to go, the more expensive it is. But to talk about this quarantine stuff, by the way, though, I do agree with Ryan. I think that Riot also wants to make sure that, you know, we don't have a repeat of LCQ. And they've already done those implementations, I think, in Iceland, because there was a tweet, wasn't it, that came out from Shazam, was like, yo, this shit's very serious. They got like guards standing outside my window or my door, not allowing us to leave and stuff like that too. And I do remember like speaking to Vanity at LCQ, and he was telling me how there were people actually even on the top, like the hotel roof or whatever in Reykjavik, to make sure that people are not leaving the hotel, and making sure that they respect the bubble for the players, so that we could actually have a tournament. unlike LCQ where we didn't because of false positives. But
well,
that's out of
I
our
will say
control.
this: I worked at an event in Vegas a couple of weeks ago where we were in a bubble as well, and it was a bubble that was like conducted by the people I think that did like the NBA bubble, or I don't know. And there were literally private security who kept tabs on you as you left the hotel.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is because Riot, it's a huge liability. It's actually risk management on the side of the tournament organizer, because Riot has to protect their event. If you go out, if you fuck off and go and get COVID and just spread it to a bunch of the homies because you just kissing homies, then it's okay. This is fine, by the way. I'm a little. I guess that's a boiled egg, right?
Yes.
You have cornbread, bread,
and I'm sure Hunter ate at least like
brie. He's chilling.
Yeah, there you go. That's fucking expensive right there, man. That's fucking class.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what?
The presentation though, that's just he's pretty dog shit.
Hunter looks like he ate at least 3/4 of that cup of fruit, so I'm sure it was a full cup, not just like they're just gonna be like.
Are you sure? It looks like a kid kitchen set, doesn't it? It just looks like plastic food that you would have in this sort of like. Sort of 3 to 4 year old fake kitchen toy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also like salami in Germany is shit.
Okay, in fairness, present that food differently and it probably looks completely acceptable, right?
Yeah.
I just, I get it. I also think that I mean, there's a guard in front of my room. Now, is he really there to make sure you don't leave, or really he's probably there more so to just keep track of where you're going? I mean, that might be the case, but listen, I mean,
think it's you can't leave because so here, and the other thing too, it depends what the rule is around like these COVID results, right? So for example, in LA for LCQ, like the players that tested false positive didn't have COVID, right? But we had to hold off the event or bring it back to online because the county or state of California enforces that you actually have to self-quarantine yourself for 10 days, even if you reported a false positive and you don't have it, just in measured precautions. So I think in this case, you're making sure that you're keeping tabs, but you're also making sure that you can't leave maybe outside of the bubble if they have a certain place that they could go to.
I will say this much, is that it also depends on the kind of test. So when we were in Vegas, I would get swabbed 3 times every morning. They would fucking turn up to my door at 7 a.m. So fucking God help me if I was, staying up late for whatever reason. I'm fucking old, so I wasn't. But they turn up 2 swabs up the fucking schnoz for a rapid test. And then one was a PCR test that they would actually send off to a lab in Los Angeles. And that was the real one. But the PCR ones were like, if I got negative on those, then they would let me into the venue and stuff like that. But I wasn't cleared until that PCR result came back from Los Angeles. So yeah, it's really complicated. I mean, we could go on about this for a while, but I just think that the measures that are being taken are pretty reasonable, considering just how important it is that this doesn't become another LCQNA. Riot cannot afford that. They cannot. So yeah,
I got to imagine as well, just initially, like it'll be a very set and strict quarantine, and then as the event actually starts, because they're there 2 weeks before, like a week and a bit. So it seems that they're quarantining up until the week of the event.
Correct.
So I imagine at that point,
at least that they didn't grab it from the airport,
like a hotel lobby or whatever. But not likely to leave that. Who knows though, really? Like,
and lastly, I think even like the cardboard plates or whatnot is also to avoid like housekeeping to grab the plates and like germ spreading and stuff like that too. So you just take it and throw it in your trash can. So
it's okay.
all good.
So for I would argue it's not the first time really. We've had like some animated shorts and stuff from Valorant before, which have always been really good. But obviously the music video in a partnership with Grabbits, who is actually one of my favorite little electronic artists. I think they're fucking awesome. It's called Die For You. A short, well, it's not short, it's a full-length music video that depicts a clutch situation in Valorant, which with very grown-up animation, might I just say. The stakes of this 3vx situation are very well expressed here. You can see Brimstone is
got shot, bro.
Yeah, I guess he got hit there as well. They do a very good job, I think, of
why is Phoenix ulting out in the open?
Well, this is a great depiction of my silver games, actually. So I feel right at home here, guys. But this is incredible.
I loved it. So fucking hype. I love the track. I think it was a long time coming too, when everybody's hyping around like, oh man, Worlds and whatnot always have like this cool theme song for all their events for League of Legends. Imagine if we actually do get it for Valorant. Well, guess what? We fucking get it for Valorant now, and it's super catchy. It's nice. The anime is dope. I mean, you're liking this, Uber. You're an anime weeb. So
this animation is a bit more like if you've seen Invincible recently on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
The superhero. Yeah, it's a bit more.
It's
like
actually
that.
that's pretty good too.
Yeah, fucking great. But I love this because as I think I'm not sure if who wrote it. I don't see who wrote it, but I saw Yinsu tweeting it. There is obviously plenty of meaning to be gleaned from this, right? In terms of all three of our agents' internal struggles. Whereas like Brimstone, I think it was his fear of giving up leadership.
Yeah.
It's.
I think it's the weight of the world. I don't think it's that deep for that one. I think
right. Yeah, I guess so. Phoenix's rash nature, I think, is what he's warring against.
Unless it's the duality of Phoenix, like in the lore of how it's like both worlds.
I don't know if that is what it's exploring. It feels like it's exploring maybe, but he's like his inner nature or something like that. And then there's Sage, who, as far as we can tell, is struggling with not being in control. Or something like that.
That's a fucking story of every Sage player in the world, right?
I mean, listen, your utility's kind of shite.
That guy right there is like actually a Radiant Smurf, and this is a silver game. So she's like, "Oh shit, what do I even do? I'm just gonna AFK and spawn." That's exactly what she's doing now.
I mean, Sage
that's
is like,
taking the life
struggle.
force of the rest of the teammates.
You could res your teammates, but you can't, stop them from sticking forks in PowerPoints. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, she's frozen now. This is a chat ban. That's what it's representing. He's just that toxic. I really like the fact that they went for something a bit more open and straightforward, because they said that they were working on this October 2020 is when they started. I'm really glad they didn't force like a tens thing in there. Like, obviously that's the big thing about the league stuff now, is you have a lot of mentions of Faker and all that, and those major storylines that have been built for League of Legends over the past 8 years that they've been doing songs, right? I'm glad that they didn't force that. And I don't really want them to do it next year either. I don't want to see like a tens yay El Diablo thing, because this is the legacy stuff that people will know. And like, I think tens is worth it. But for example, like a Gambit, that kind of team at the moment, I don't know. So I'm really glad that this is just a straightforward video about the game, about the clutch moments, and not just, oh, this is the short history of Valorant Esports.
Yeah.
Because we're not at that point yet to be idolizing it in an animation that costs millions of dollars to make. Not yet.
We're not trying to immortalize our players yet. I mean,
there was still a cool tweet though from Redgar, I think, at some point, where he's like, because the guy with the earrings, the one that's holding the flower or whatever, he's like, oh, he kind of looks like me. I kind of wish to be like immortalized into like a video clip or the game at some point as well. So it's cool that there's like maybe
because he's not there like this.
like
he's like spines.
Just hunched
It's not
over.
him.
Yeah, I mean that's
It's
like
good
the other
posture.
part of it is that like it kind of looks like him.
See?
But
yeah,
it's
scroll down
like-
to the second one.
it does show the agents sort of having to give over control to their quote unquote players, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we are seeing in this. I mean, yeah, look, in fairness, Redgar, like, there are probably a few people that can draw similarities to that animated character, my friend, but you can believe what you like. That's fine. Does he even play Sage, guys? It's not the point. Okay? All right. It's just just a depiction, Like, tell me which pro player.
I hope Link over the next few years just goes full beast mode to be immortalized, because by extension, I will be immortalized in game, right? So
that's true. Yeah. And
that's
will
the beauty of it.
Beers and Mitch and I mean, yeah.
So that's all we need to do is highlight more white bold people.
Right.
Needless to say, the music clip owns. The track is dope. I'm looking forward to see how we're gonna do this into like if it's gonna be like Worlds, like a concert or something.
I was kind of hoping. So when I saw Gravitz in the name, I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more upbeat. It works. It's fine. It's cool, but he does like some fucking banger electronic pieces. You know what I mean? This was a little bit more light and fluffy. It was good though.
Well,
I like the fucking chamber sat there just fucking pounding them as well. sat on the B site.
When you're finishing the track too, like even the beat, like dun dun dun, like even the one that we'll talk about later on the skin, it really reminds me of the track of the lobby when you're actually like just slowly getting into the game, right? So I think that's what's really cool. So I think very similar to Zed, it feels like they're really listening to like the theme of what the track of Valorant is trying to show with their lobby sounds and their lobby music, and then turned it into something cool, which is also really nice, because you're not steering away from what their perception of what Riot is with Valorant. So I kind of like the old low beat, kind of like grungy kind of thing that's been evolving around the circuit this year.
And I think they didn't dilute the nature and personality of their agents by associating them too closely with players like Ryan was bringing up. Even in like the League of Legends Worlds video, it was like, you know, Faker didn't become Syndra or whoever he was in the video. Like he didn't become them. He like had elements of their like outfit on him.
Used
like,
their like abilities, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a reference to what they did, but obviously like there wasn't. They didn't get any closer than that. There was some reactions to it, which were pretty funny, I thought. Obviously, yeah, Redgars, I think Magnum, as you saw, reacted to it. Boaster, being Boaster, had to, again, flex his creative muscles. and this reminded me of, I don't know if you guys have seen the video where a bloke gets fucking slapped by his mate, and he goes, I can't believe you've done this.
Yeah,
this clip here from
and a story came out where that video got fully deleted at some point, and he was super mad about it. I don't know, it was like a month and a half ago.
Oh, well, there you go. All right, let's roll this. We roll it.
This could be the day Phoenix, what you do that for? This could be the day Phoenix, what you do that for?
Yeah, thanks, Blake. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't know Korean League of Legends teams well enough to like tell who's being animated. It was, you know, whoever it was, right? Is you know, it was looking like Syndra. Yeah, great job for Boaster. Funny as fuck, as usual. I like this. So, but I wonder how this theme will be used now. Will it be like the theme music for the event, which is fine, but I know that Riot usually has like a bunch of I mean, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
seems pretty fucking good.
For Worlds, they had like another song, didn't they? Where obviously they have the Paris, I've forgotten what it's called, but the World song, and then usually they have just like a sting, right? Just another bit of music that's something else. So wouldn't surprise me if there's a bit of a mix there. I think nobody really wants to get to the end of the event and be sick of that song, especially if it's going to be a kill finisher and all that, as we'll talk about. So I hope that that's not the case, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hinted that there'll be a live performance of that, which is fun. I kind of like that at the closing ceremony instead of like, I don't know, before the third place match.
Before the grand finals.
Stop doing that shit. I fucking hate it. You should make it optional for people if they want to fucking see it. And
you don't like DJ Khaled doing OWO?
I will fucking... I will get on a plane.
I got told a really interesting story about that. I think a couple of years before my granddad passed away, and my funny story, right?
Yeah, funny story. You just made me fully stop laughing right there about DJ Khaled, right? What
like a psychic, and she said like, "Oh, Brian really," because my granddad was called Brian. He really enjoyed New York, and she's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, did you have a family member that went to New York recently?" Because my granddad's like a big fan of Frank Sinatra and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
And so it's like, oh yeah, he went with Ryan because I went for the Overwatch League, and I could just imagine like his spirit or ghost sat there in the stadium of people playing a video game, and there's DJ Khaled doing whatever the fuck he's doing, and he's just like, what's going on? What happened? Why are we not going to like Central Park? Why are we here? What's going on?
The story behind that. I mean, so when I spoke to Nate Nanzer about this, he sold it pretty differently. He was like, "Oh, look, you know, we're gonna have Khalid at the Overwatch League finals." I'm like, "Okay, fucking, all right, cool." You know, I mean, that's not really my kind of music, but he's made some notable contributions to the music industry. Right, Khalid's pretty fucking legit. And then it's DJ Khaled instead. So it's like it's almost like. He must have been a friend of fucking dickhead Uncle Bobby who's got on the phone like, yeah, fucking, you can come do this. God, he didn't even know this motherfucker didn't even know where he was. He got off the fucking plane. I mean, you all saw the performance, right? I saw
the dance. I remember the dance.
I mean, and I sat there thinking to myself, like, it's been a long year, you know? First year launch of this league, had our share of challenges. We've overcome them. No one's going to remember any of that now. No. This is this guy who's attempted to show us a dance move that he apparently is perfecting. He fucked it up on stage, tried to gloss it over, then asked the crowd to put their hands up if they loved Jesus, and then proceeded to perform a song, ironically titled "We the Best," which samples all these other tracks from actual fucking musicians. And I was sat there like, okay, well, this is what the next 4 years of my fucking life is going to look like. And what a portent that has been.
That's the real crime of Blizzard recently, is just that, and that's the stink. But I mean, Zed the year after was insane. I really enjoyed him at Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that was great.
And that's the thing. Sorry, to get back on as well for the live concert that should be happening here for Champions, is that also Champions will not have a crowd, right? So I wonder what's that going to look like for how they're going to produce it to make it quote unquote not cringe in a sense, because sometimes it's just like it's, on top of that, it's a DJ that's probably just gonna chill with his music. So with what they did with Crown, I think it was kind of cool when it kind of had those festivals and they were able to like animate that quite well to get you still involved into the song. So I'm hoping that we're able to see that, because I don't know if you guys watched that Arcane show like on the 19th and 18th before the premiere came out, and they actually had the one that did like the Jinx song. I forgot which song it is, but it's within the show, and the volume was kind of off. It just felt like everything was all muffled and everything too. You can hear the crowd in the back cheering and stuff like that as well. The guitars sounded kind of muffled too. So I'm just hoping that it's not going to have like such a like amateur-esque like streaming home setup, and we're able to hear something really cool for the show itself.
Okay, I don't know who Kimotis is in chat. I don't. We had a show to run. I'm not really going to explain to you why DJ Khaled, lacking self-awareness and being generally not much of a musician, in my humble opinion, performing at our grand finals was a bit of a stink. I'll let you figure it out. maybe go poll some of your friends about that.
Like BlizzCon performances, right? Because you've had like Linkin Park, Metallica at BlizzCon,
yeah.
and they've at least been aware of where they are. Like even Muse, Weird Al Yankovic was wang. That was exactly cool. Right.
Also,
it just felt that Khaled didn't read the brief and didn't know what exactly he was doing.
Me saying, Khalid has made contributions to the music industry means exactly what I said it means, and nothing more than that. The guy's a good musician. I don't know what to tell you. Weird people. All right, we got the Village Idiots in chat today. Let's keep moving along. So obviously, we saw people tweeting about what they're up to in Berlin, right? People trying to while away these quarantine hours. I guess, looking at the menu, looks like pretty decent food. Just saying. So looks like they're getting some nice food sent their way. But Boaster obviously is doodling in his spare time. I guess these guys don't have PCs like in their hotel rooms, right? Like
finally got set up today.
Okay, so they didn't initially, but they do now. At least they can practice and such.
Yeah, exactly. For a while, that's why like those funny tweets came out from like Boaster with like the slippers on his head because he was just going crazy, insane. Only enough VODs you could watch on your cell phone, so you finally connected onto Yinsu's Netflix account. So yeah, they were trying to find some way to kill time until finally, thanks to Secret Lab, tables came in, gaming chairs came in, everything came in, and now they could probably practice and rank now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Look, I don't blame them. I mean, if you are put up in this hotel room with not a whole lot to do, I'd probably struggle as well.
Oh, the shame. Oh, I can't even fathom what that's like. At least they got options for breakfast. Like for me, I had it where it's like, oh, what do you want for breakfast? I was like, I'll just have some like bacon and scrambled eggs. And they didn't ask if I wanted anything else different for the rest of the 14 days that I was there. I'm pretty sure they're still calling me now and just be like, hello, would you like breakfast? And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm okay. So yeah, they'll be fine. I'm sure they'll be out and avoiding getting COVID as much as they possibly can by next week. So,
it's tough, I think, because if you want to go out and maybe have dinner, it's kind of hard to do. If your bubble, you're probably in the same bubble if you're all players. So you can be around each other once they're able to quote unquote seal the bubble. So once everyone's passed their like initial PCR
5
tests,
days,
then you can. I don't know how long it is. It really depends, but eventually they'll be able to associate with one another in the real if they have any interest in doing so. I love this production as well. This come out of the North American Valorant scene. Naturals, hosted by the one and only Babybay, who did a fantastic job of this, but not too surprised. We've seen, obviously, Babybay take part in pieces of content before and do a great job. So it's a great way, I think, of Babybay fleshing out the sort of personalities or the styles of a few of these players. And speaking of styles, this is very stylistically shot, this one, right? It's like a nod to Tarantino in here as well. This is just very, very well done.
Yep. I love it for sure. Like, even exactly to what Ryan was saying, when you look at the song and like you're immortalizing the tracks, you don't want to really get the players and stuff like that immortalized into those videos because it's going to be long standing. We don't know if the players are going to stick with the teams or whatnot in the long run. So it's cool that you have these features that are coming out for the NA side in general for now. Hopefully we're going to see some for EU, but this type of content that showcases the players, that showcases a team in the very moment going into champions, it's really cool to watch. And that Tarantino nod, I agree with you. I loved it. That was on the one with Ye and FNS and Crashies when they're actually going with that full-out interview. That's like, I think, 15 minutes long for every one of these. So the Ye one came out yesterday. Today was the one with Vanity and Cloud9, which I watched before we started the show. Very cool content from both ends. And this Tens one, I'm sure, is going to be the third one coming out potentially tomorrow. But yeah, it's been really, really fun to just see the personalities of these players.
And this is not low budge by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like, I love this. Was this Ye? Or supposed to be Ye? In like
the cowboy walking in. Humble guy too. Yeah, you guys should watch it. It's a very fun. It's a very fun and nice video piece from onto these teams.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, I think Pesto brings up an interesting point in the chat as well. You're Babybay, right? Like, you probably want people to be making this shit about you. You know what I mean? If you're driven to, be a sort of a star in Val, which I assume that, Andre and anybody else is, you want to be the subject of this stuff, not kind of the host. I mean, there have been plenty of players that have moved into like, hosting roles that have done fine, but I imagine for many of them, there's always been that desire, that passion about still competing. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I do have to
I think
wonder
they're far from done. I think they're far from done after that, especially after doing and seeing all this. They're probably like, yeah, I want us to be our fucking team next year for the next season.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was cool. Also, we now kind of know that there is a skin bundle for champions. Oof. This is why I think this was leaked not so long ago today by Ryan's arch nemesis, Mike VALORANTING.
I wish.
This miscreant. But again, I can't believe I can't believe we have this already. Honestly, we have a skin set, which is obviously a Vandal and like a Karambit-like knife.
Yeah.
To commemorate our first champions. And on top of that, it was said that 50% of revenue would be going to the teams at champions, presumably added to what their prize pool winnings would be, which I think is fantastic. Some tournament organizers and devs, sort of publishers have been a bit funny about doing that in the past, but as far as I can tell, it was a really successful model in Counter-Strike when it came to stickers. They were a little bit more personalized to players, but in general, this seems great.
Yeah. Ryan, I'll let you start because this is all you and Hitscan.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very short notice thing, to say the very least. And yeah, it was cool to be able to show it off. I think this is a really cool set. I think that overall, it's a really nice idea. I like that, like, less is more with a bundle like this. I thought the same for Arcane, because it is a bit on the expensive side, but knowing that it's supporting all of the 16 teams equally with that 50% cut is really solid. The funny thing about, like, Mike being my arch nemesis, at least he asks me if he can use some of the gameplay, unlike some of the other channels that just try and rip it. Hence the watermark at the bottom, by the way. So if you see that around.
There it is, baby.
It's one of those things, I guess, where it's like it's the best, most true to nature Karambit that we've had so far, like new animations and stuff. The Vandal is nice. Obviously, a lot of the bells and whistles on it are really good, but there's no variants, there's no equips or reload effects. There is one where if you fire, you actually get like the Valorant champion style, the typical logo with the triangles going in various directions.
Yeah.
It's like that as a muzzle flare, which is really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot going for it, I suppose. It's a shame that it is that expensive, but knowing that it supports some of the teams. I had a Q&A with Sean and Preeti, who are the producers, which will probably go out in a couple of days' time. But also Riley Yerk was there, who is like the esports strategist. And I guess this is their way of involving the teams way before there's going to be a franchise system, right? I feel like this is more of a proof of concept to see how much they can bring these esport teams into their ecosystem, which is obviously what every organization wants to do, hence why they sign up to the LCS and the LEC ultimately.
And they pay to do that as well. This is why you also pay, in some cases, pretty large buy-ins to be part of it, because you know, it's really quite huge to have your, first of all, your team not, you know, at risk of being relegated, but also immortalized in the game to some degree. It's very, very good for marketing.
I think that's why teams like G2 spend so much money on trying to get the best roster they can, because it's showing that you're invested in the scene, figuratively and literally, when it comes to the money that's been thrown around, right? So it's nice that they've done it that way and not top-ended it with a winner's prize pool, because from the sounds of it, it's $1 million prize pool anyway, so it's still a lot of money in any case. And as much as I want the players to earn that as well, I also do want to see organizations themselves make money from this, because I want to see those organizations still invested in the scene. Whereas with all of the rumors for next year, there's almost that feeling that teams are going to take a step out of Valorant, which hopefully teams look at this and go, oh, this is too good to not be a part of, right? It's that kind of thing. But it also makes sense why teams like NIP would go to Brazil if this is the thing going forward, right?
Yeah, because even if you're looking at, I think Rainbow Six, though, it's still somewhat franchised, even though it's through a circuit, right? Because they're not playing like specifically a league or whatnot. They're playing a league that's online, but it goes through like a circuit that's worldwide. But
can they be relegated from said circuit?
Yeah, possibly, because there's Challenger League too. And then Counter-Strike kind of has that circuit very similar to what VCT has right now, which is why probably those capsules and all that are fairly popular, and how teams really want to make it to the majors, because that's how like the organizations and the players are able to make a little bit more money on the side by making it the champions. Champions here at this point, I think it's a good test in between to see, yes, how much support are they going to get from the general public that's going to want to buy the bundle, to support the teams, to support the teams in general, because it's split evenly onto 16 teams. But then later on, are we going to try to have anything more specific to like players in terms of buddies, stickers in terms of teams, sprays in terms of
I had
teams?
an answer to that, actually. That was one of the questions I asked, because obviously I think teams want like a Sentinels one, and it's just the amount of time that it takes a skin to be made. Like, say, for example, let's say Sentinels, because I wondered if they'd do something like the Overwatch League. Like, obviously not with MVPs anymore, but with a team like San Francisco Shock winning the Overwatch League and then getting a skin the following year. Would we get something like that with Valorant? And the general consensus was, we don't want to do that too much. Like, you don't want to alienate some of these teams that are heavily invested in the scene on a circuit that isn't very consistent or safe to be investing in for a lot of these organizations. The big thing from the developing side of you is, let's say Sentinels win champions. By the time that skin is done and made and goes out, we're probably looking at champions 2022 at that point.
Correct,
you know what I mean? Like,
it often is the case.
The turnaround for that is pretty insane. And also, I don't think they just want to do stuff like stickers. Like, like, it's one of those things where they didn't specifically say that, but you can tell from the cosmetics that are in the game, you're not just going to get stickers on guns, right? Like, I don't think that's really what they vibe with.
Yeah, sorry, I meant like sprays instead of the stickers or something like that. Just anything to like.
How much is the bundle though, Ryan? How much is it?
It's 6,242 VP, so it's about $60, $70 ish.
I mean, for it is a lot.
For what it is, yeah. It's one of the best melees, and it's one of those things where you can't just get the melee on its own. You have to buy the bundle,
right? And it won't appear in the night
regardless
market
if it's dog shit. I'd still support it, you know. But
exactly the same thing for me.
The affiliation, like, that's the money that probably like pays for us to do like VCT through the stages, right?
Yeah,
so
maybe
funnels back into us.
If it okay, so how would you guys feel about paying this price if half the proceeds didn't go to teams at champions?
Probably still buy it.
No, I don't think I would. I feel like champions is made off the back of the teams that are taking part and the stories that they naturally fill up.
I love the fucking
thing
finisher.
to highlight is just the stuff that you can get for free. Like, everybody gets the golden player card just now. Like, hooray, congratulations. The spray that you get, which is the Valorant Champions Tour logo, that's the variations in different colors. You get that from watching groups to semifinals. The Gun Buddy, which is like the one that you get when you win Masters events, the purple logo, you can get that in red just from watching the finals. So not only do you have stuff where you can support the teams, viewership for the finals is going to be through the roof because everybody will want those buddies.
Yeah.
I feel like they're the next, certainly when we get to the future for the esports side of stuff, because people love to be gatekeepy on that kind of thing. Having that is like a rite of passage, I feel. You don't have the 2021 VCT buddy, like get the fuck out. It's like...
Honestly, that's why I bought the 2021 Envy skin in Halo. Because if they're going to change into like optic skins and be like, hey, what happened to your Envy 2021 skin? I was like, yo, I got it before it was a hot commodity. Right. And I'm the type of person I like those hot commodities. So this is going to be a bundle that never goes back into your store. So if you don't get it now, you'll never get it again. So to be, you're like, oh, I was there for year one of Valorant or whatever into the circuit. It's like, it's something cool to quote unquote gatekeep, as you were saying, Ryan. So I definitely buy it. I also like the finisher from that skin bundle.
I think you have to step inside the orb to see it.
Which is totally fine because I used to use the Ani skin, right? And the Ani Phantom is when I kill people and the mask shows up. Right? I go and run up and look at the mask. So I'm going to do the same thing for the orbs when I kill people now too.
I think that's quite smart from a design perspective as well. Yeah, like I'm gonna say, maybe I would get it because I like my skin collection. The comparison of my skin collection to my ability to play the game is just it's bad. It's astonishingly awful. I have way too many skins.
I legit play ranked, not on my main, because I don't want to be that guy that has all of these skins.
I have more skins than I have games played in ranked, I think.
Come on, how sick is that? It's fucking Stim Silly, Brimstone himself.
I'm also really glad the Brimstone's big enough that you don't have the situation where you run in and it's like your Brimstone penis level of height, so you have players that are like obviously just going for it. I can't remember which one is the Ruination one. I think
the Sentinels of Light.
Yeah. They like to go to town.
Oh right, where they end up on their knees and you can.
Yeah, right. Sure. So Brimstone's too big to do that because I imagine a lot of people would have been like, please, if only I was like 10 inches taller.
Jesus fucking Christ! All right. Now we have a trophy reveal as well. The trophy has been revealed for champions. So, as far as I understand, this is the trophy, yeah?
Yeah.
Must be, yeah. This is the lobby, like main menu image that's in there now as well.
Yeah.
And it's also it's also shown on the on Split. So you know how they always put like the glitch pop and all that stuff in like different areas
in the shop, right?
Exactly. So now you have the trophy that's in there. I think it looks pretty freaking cool, man. For that type of theme, again, into Valorant, when you're looking at the duality of what's been going on in the lore, like it's an opposites attract kind of thing into like this like collider that's exploding because of Chamber. I don't know exactly what the lore is going through, but I think that's pretty cool. And the fact that it's like wavy and stuff like that, it's kind of like Kintsugi pottery, if you guys know about that. So it's like a Japanese art form where you're like remending like broken pieces of vases and porcelain to make like the shape. And it's like a metaphor to like trying to fix things and mend broken things and like I think move on.
You could have just said mosaic and I would have been on board with you. But
well, no, Kintsugi is actually cooler because you're trying to fix the worlds that are being broken by fucking the collider, right? So it all fits. It all fits.
Gotcha. Yeah, all right. I'm sure there are people just like you that were sat in a boardroom wearing like flowing silks with bells, just fucking getting sage, incense in the air and coming up with this stuff as well. So I think
that's my next job when I'm done casting.
I'm telling you, mate,
they
fucking
this creative stuff with Riot.
They have to be because the creators at Riot, they're pretty damn good. But some of the stuff is pretty out there.
So Van Silly's not in work today. He said his chakra is off, so he's not coming today.
Can't get his third eye open. Yeah. It's been a bit uncomfortable.
I'm pretty zen. I'll always be.
I think
you
should see a doctor about that if you can't.
Chamber's not playable at Champions.
Correct,
what are our thoughts here?
I'm okay with it. I think because we haven't had a chance to really see Fracture really in like bigger pro plays right now. I know it's been around home ground and stuff like that too, but I'm looking forward to more into seeing Fracture and Champion than Chamber in itself. It doesn't fit into like the 2-week grace period when Chamber comes out into another tournament that comes in, so it just makes sense. And it's a lot to manage. To like go through Fracture and also go through a new agent and finally a 7-map pool for Champions.
I just put a picture in Discord. Is there any way we can get this side by side with that image of Chamber, guys? Because I need to point something out here about this particular character. Yeah. So look, fair enough. I think you know, people are still so divided. I think I'm seeing a lot of people that just say they think Chamber is awful. There are obviously a lot of people insta-locking him, which is like what Riot want, because they want people to, you know, buy the agent.
Limit test him, yeah.
Yeah, limit testing. We'll go with that one. That's good. I remember watching Bren play a bunch, and he was getting pooed on by like Chambers that were kept insta-locking on his team. So he started playing it himself. I think that's what everyone. This is Chamber, by the way. This is Kisaki Teta from fucking Tokyo Revengers. Looks the fucking same. This is young Kisaki Teta, by the way. It's the same guy. You can't fucking tell me otherwise. You can't. Great series, by the way. Need to go watch it. Super good. One of the best this season. I'm putting my foot down on that one. So we have a group draw. We had a group draw, rather. We had two of our venerated members of Riot Games broadcast talent sort of draw these groups. It was a pretty, I think it was a pretty long video, right? Oh, wow. We'll show this one first, right?
Funny. Because I feel like, because the amount of times that Rivi, like, he's just like, can you get the next ball for me, please, Ender?
Yeah.
The next ball, Ender. I feel like Ender was just going to turn around and go like, shut the fuck up, I'm working on it. You can see what I'm doing, right? Like,
I do like this too, how they were pulling the groups this time, and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but they wanted to make sure as well that the regions are not going to be stuck in like the same group as well, right? So
yeah, not two EMEA teams in one group.
Exactly, and not two NA teams in one group, kind of like what we saw in Berlin last time. So I think this is actually pretty cool to see for both EU fans, NA fans, and even Southeast Asian fans. So cool. But if I'm not mistaken, within the group themselves, once we see them finalize, I can't remember them offhand, but isn't there like two Brazilian teams together? There shouldn't be, right?
Yeah, Furia.
There is, right?
No, it's Furia and Crew. So
Crew.
So not
South American teams,
different
but
regions.
Not to Brazil.
Okay. So we're good.
One's LATAM North, one's LATAM South, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, I mean, I won't put you through this because it is pretty much. I mean, Ender doing a great job. I mean, talk about picking up a cozy little paycheck. By the way,
fucking I take those.
Spin some balls around, open one up, and yeah, all right, nicely done. I
hope he's doing more than that at Champions, because imagine getting that call, right? It's like, hey, Ender, do you want to work Champions? And he's like, hell yeah, I'd love to. Like, I literally moved out of Europe to do some more Valorant stuff in North America, right? Like, that's what I want to do. Yeah, you just need to pick these balls out, and that's all you're doing. Right? I feel like that is just Ender's luck at this point, bless him. Like, so I hope he gets to do a bit more for Worlds, even if it is just selecting the draws for groups and quarterfinal players.
I'm sure they'll find a place like all other Riot casters for him to shine, Ryan. I'm sure they'll set him up real good. Let's have a look at our format video. For those that haven't seen it, we're going to roll this now for you to watch. This is an explainer on how Champions is going to go down. I quite like this video. Enjoy.
Valorant Champions is kicking off on December 1st. Here's what you need to know before the tournament begins. Champions is the global finale of the 2021 VCT. 16 of the world's best Valorant teams will meet in Berlin to compete for the title of the first ever World Champions of Valorant. Teams attending the event earn their spots through winning certain major events or collecting the highest number of circuit points within their regions. The tournament will see representatives from North America, EMEA, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, Brazil, and Latin America. Taking place from December 1st through the 12th, Champions will begin with group play, followed by an 8-team single elimination bracket. All matches will be a best of 3, with the exception of the finals, which will be a best of 5. The teams were sorted into 4 groups, with the goal of distributing teams from the same region into different groups. Each group will play through a 4-team double elimination bracket, with 2 teams emerging from each of the 4 groups. Those 8 teams will then be randomly placed into a single elimination bracket, with teams from the same group being placed on opposite sides of the bracket. The winner of this knockout stage bracket will be crowned the first ever World Champions of Valorant. To learn more about Champions, check out ValorantEsports.com and follow our socials for further updates.
Oh yeah, I love me some of that shit. That's great. Quickly as well on the seeding, I think there were different pools, right? And so teams were placed in pools based on their like regionalized performances.
Yeah,
that was like the best they could do to make it not completely random. obviously there's always going to be a little bit of randomness to it, but this is what we have here, right? So Group A: Ascend, Vivo Keyed, Team Envy, and X10. Were Envy not in the same group as Vivo Keyed at Masters? I want to maybe.
Yeah, I think
they were.
Yeah.
They were. I think there's a couple of that. I'm trying to remember them all.
So yeah, obviously Fury is Brazilian, not LATAM North. Sorry, in Brawl Stars, it's just LATAM North and South. There's no extra Brazilian region, so I get mixed up. But yeah, Sentinels, Furia, Crew, Team Liquid. Group C is Gambit, Secrets, Vikings, and Crazy Raccoon. Group D is Vision Strikers, Full Sense, Fnatic, and Cloud9. That is pretty wild. And people are saying that Group D is the group of death. Pretty hard to argue with that. That is filthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably like when you're looking at the teams themselves, I know there's like stronger teams maybe in the eyes of some fans in other groups, but I think in terms of like the matchups between these four teams within this group is very, very hard to predict. I don't want to go into predictions right now because I think we're going to do this next week, but it's a good overview of the groups that we have coming up. So I'm looking forward to trying to predict our shit for next week.
Yeah, I guess we can. Yeah, we can chop it up about that. Let's move on then. We are going to have Tanny come on the show pretty soon. But let's talk about some of the roster news that came from this week. Not a huge amount of stuff. There was maybe some minor news coming out of like Eastern Europe. If you're a Heat fan, you'll probably know that team's not around anymore. But I guess one of the biggest ones is that Oderus is leaving version 1. Now, this is a more recent addition on this roster, but they have not found their footing with him.
The latest one too, and I don't necessarily think that it's on Oderus' fault if you're looking just at the results of version 1 going to the LCQ. I think it's just version 1 in itself. We're still trying to find an identity. And I think that's a good thing, actually, in my eyes, that Oderus got benched by version 1, because Oderus actually has a very good mind to the game, where he was actually still able to do pretty well IGLing for KCP, has that mentality, and is able to do that for our team. Whereas within version 1, it went from Effie's responsibility for IGLing then over to Zelsis, and you're like trying to, like, people were scratching their heads too, being like, well, what about Oderus? I thought we were going in because he was going to replace Vanity, because Vanity was the IGL that they lost within version 1. So why I think this is a good thing is because now you're actually allowing somebody with a great mind to join a team that needs an IGL and continue to help the NA scene in terms of like its competition. So that's the good news about it. Of course, bad news is we don't want anybody to get cut, but I'm happy for Oderus in that sense that he's going to be able to find good opportunities.
Still. I mean, they lost the Knights, man, in the community, the Elite Showdown, right? I think that if you're a version 1, having been a roster that is quite literally played at the top level globally, it's a tough pill to swallow, and you don't want to be floating around this particular substrata in North America.
Yeah, but Knights have been looking pretty good recently as well, right? I think when we think about Knights is because we're still probably potentially looking at what Knights has not accomplished yet, but still looking at what they looked like before or now in that tournament for the VES. And also rumors are that they're trialing Gangsta for Knights, so that's going to continue to upgrade in the roster.
You reckon that's an upgrade?
For Gangsta, yeah. Team? Yeah, I think so. Gangsta is still a good Silva that's underrated.
One of my favorite Silvers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Really nasty. All right, so let's talk about TSM news. Obviously, this is an image here. is this Rossy with a TSM hoodie on? Right, so both he and Corey have been tied to this TSM roster. Now, obviously, with Hayes having departed the team, and obviously Levi's on this roster, right? So, what do we think about this?
I'm looking forward to it. If it's a clickbait, it's a fun clickbait, because there was a nice clickbait coming out from Babybay as well. It's like, oh, I can't wait to work with my new team, and he's like wearing a 100 Thieves shirt at dinner. But on Rossy itself, I think it will be a good pickup actually for TSM if it comes true, because Rossy, I think, was last seen, at least from what I remember, trialing for Immortals. We're just talking about that team.
I mean,
and he was like
playing in like a VCT, and he played
Astra,
and he fucking pounded people.
Exactly. So he was Astraing, and he's also IGLing. So that is what is really needed for TSM after losing Hayes, right? After cutting Hayes, should I correct myself? Not necessarily losing Hayes.
You made that clear.
Exactly. So now at this point, now you have an IGL, and you have somebody that could play Smokes, where Hayes was like in between Sentinel and Smokes. Now it just comes down to what's the rest of this roster. If Corey is actually going to be the last piece coming in, and who's going to play that Silva. We're gonna see more switches between this roster again in terms of agent comps, where we still need those questions answered.
So it would be Wardell, Sabrosa, Corey, I guess Levi.
Leviathan. Oh yeah, sorry, Leviathan is fucking Silva. I'm dumb.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's looking complete in those two in terms of like S tier agents that you need to be played.
Yeah.
It's just for the rest. Who's the duelist? Who's going to be the Sky and whatnot, right? So.
I think it's Corey would be a really good secondary entry.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just a role that suits him perfectly.
Would you put Sabrosa then on that Sentinel Viper at some point then?
I always like Sabrosa on like the lurking controller. And I think that's still a very potent play style when you're looking at players like David P, for example.
Yeah.
But it's hard to gauge. It's been so long since I've watched Sabrosa at this point.
Exactly.
You know, like
he's playing a bunch
ultimately,
of Sky,
I want
right?
TSM to play in other tournaments. Like I hate that they're the kind of team that's like, oh, we only play the big circuit. Like you have so much shit to to sort out. Like playing ESG, like NSG, like championships and all that. Like hubris, I think is going to dick on this team a little bit. And I think they need.
Are you sure they're not prevented from competing this stuff? Because we talked to FaZe and they said that like they couldn't compete in some of these tournaments based on. I mean, not that TSM necessarily has racked up all that many notable results in the past, but I wonder like what
they made a challenges final. I think that was like the thing that you need to hit. To be fair, so
I see.
I'm sure those rules are going to change for next year because it makes no sense now looking at the end of the year and how volatile the competition is right now for Valorant.
Yeah, locking teams out of that shit just seems like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Anyway, don't you want the best teams at your turn? No, I don't know.
Like region locking casters.
It's yeah.
We are going to
very different world that we're living in now.
We are going to blaze a trail through this Papega shit. All right. We're going to get there. Hey, Vodafone Giants cut half their fucking team. These guys look pretty good at home grounds. Obviously didn't maybe go as far as they would have liked to, and maybe beating FPX in the way they did isn't, such a huge accolade anymore. But Pips and Meadow and Hoodie dropped from this roster.
Yeah, I mean, third place in home ground is as good as you sort of expect when you look at the other two teams being the ones that head into Champions, Liquid, and Ascend, right? It's pretty obvious that they're heading to G2 at this point. Like, that's the look in. You got a coach as well with Pipson who has been a world-class coach ever since he retired from being a player. Like, he is the mindset, the tactic policies that come out of him. Literally, they turn stuff around so frequently off the back of that. The problem is you don't really have that set IGL. It sounds like Coldamenta's potentially being dropped alongside Kellogg's.
Wow.
So that's where those two players of Meadow come in. Like, what a year Meadows had as well. This time last year, he was dropped from FPX for being too passive. And now look at him. He's on G2. I know that Carlos has always wanted Meadow on that team, but the fact that they now have that stalwart Sentinel, it means that Mixwell can move back over to a duelist. And I guess Hoodie would be playing the Sova/IGL. It's really hard to get a gauge, but I feel bad for this Giants team because I wanted them to stay together. And I also think that G2 roster, minus making some changes on the backbench with, I think Lucas was one of the more problematic people from the sounds of it, right? So seeing as he was dropped, I would have liked to have seen the rest of G2 stay together and push it because the potential was there. For me, it felt that G2 team just had too much on and too much pressure on them to qualify for champions on the back of making some insane changes. We're bringing a vote.
It wasn't that. I mean, they walked into Heretics' house and just fucking raided the pantry, didn't they? And then fucked off with the Frosted Flakes.
Well, that's
left the front door banging in the breeze, kind of thing.
Well, Mixwell did say it in like one of the pre-interviews before going into Berlin that anything less than winning champions is a failure for G2 with how much, I'm assuming, pressure came into the bag that was dropped to get these players in from Heretics, right? From Nuki and whatnot. So they didn't get it, and now this is a repercussion of it because a G2 eventually wants to win and they just don't want to be like, I know Carlos wants to have fun and he likes to meme it out, but of course he wants some titles with that too. I'm actually more sad for Kellogg's, not if the rumors are true that he's not playing with the G2 roster anymore, because he looked pretty good on LAN. He looked like he was enabled quite well by Mixwell, who's playing a very good support role too. So I'm very intrigued into what's that going to look like for that type of like chemistry later on, and like the pressure that we already gave Mixwell of being like, yeah, he's not fit to be like a Jet duelist, and we actually like to see him as this Viper, as a support player, and now that he may go back into that Jet role, then the pressure is going to be even more heavy onto Mixwell, I think, if he's going back to the duelist role.
Yeah. I mean, he vacated the shoes and he still has big shoes to fill coming back in. I think that's one of the most interesting off-season stories.
Yep.
Right now in Europe, before we have anything Champions resolved. All right, let's move on. Over the weekend in Arlington, Texas, a group of us came together to celebrate online and in person, of course, the year that esports has been. It's called the Esports Awards, but I'd much prefer, I think it's much more reasonable to call it the Esports Awards brought to you by Riot and Brazil. Because that's basically what it was. Great event though. Obviously the host cast was great. I had a good time. So we flew over on the day, and got dolled up, went to dinner, then went to bed, then sort of flew back home the next day. So pretty in and out pretty quickly. I think that as far as the event goes, there's still a lot of work to be done for the Esports Awards. I've been doing this for 6 years now, but I don't know who is QCing their video footage, but there was some real glaring errors in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like when for example, like, oh, that's me. What's up?
Oh,
that's me and my lovely partner Ashley. Yeah, we managed to get away for a weekend. Left the little guy with the grandparents.
Nice.
Who's the guy behind you? He looks very, very shocked.
I don't know who that. Actually, I don't know who that was. Yeah, I actually didn't know a lot of the people that were there. I mean, yeah, sorry, I have no idea who that is.
I mean, what does the cameraman say? Because he's turned around like, you fucking what? What did
you
just say?
Yeah, is that getting caught in a photo there? But
and Ash?
Yeah, so obviously I was nominated in a category. That's why, like, I mean, I'll be clear. If you're nominated in a category, they pay for the hotel. So I was like, oh, I can just pay for a flight and go there. It seems worth it to catch up with people, and especially because like Brennan Sideshow are now living in Texas, so I can't just see them like in LA on an average day. So it was worth going down for. I tell you what, Riot and Valorant did pretty well this year. Game of the year was awarded to Valorant, which is, I mean, guys, hard to argue. I don't feel like arguing. I do feel like, let me make this clear. I think the panel that makes a lot of the last decision on these is very heavily Riot stacked. It is extremely shilly for Riot games. Extremely, and in a lot of categories. But listen, I think that's deserved game. I personally think that Valorant is definitely one of, if not the best game that came out this year. I mean, it came out late last year, right? But either way,
yeah,
2020
April.
Yep, I definitely think that's fair. Esports Publisher of the Year award also for Riot Games. Now, I mean, again, they're operating more than one esport title. And I think they're doing a great job with all of them. So another one for Mr. Roselle and his cohort there at the table who were next to us. And they also received the Esports Broadcast / Production Team of the Year award. Look, I think Valorant's been great. I don't think that it was the Valorant side of things that won in this award.
No, the League of Legends side.
I think so, yeah. There's obviously they've been ambitious with their Valorant coverage. Say again?
The Legends are in Terra circuit. That's where it's at.
I mean, no, in fairness, like Riot operates, it's a big misnomer because they operate their League of Legends stuff themselves, but in Valorant, a lot of it's third party or a combination.
MSG freaks for you, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I thought that, Valorant's esports production this year left a little bit to be desired on multiple events, ranging from formatting, scheduling, how talent are treated, player conditions, all that stuff. I think that there's a lot of work to be done. Like, I just want to be honest, and I want to see the Valorant esports do well, and I look forward to next year because there's definitely some stuff happening. But
I got a spicy question for you. Would you be happy to see Nerd Street Gamers take on the circuit for 2022? Again,
I think I'm fine with that personally. I think they got a lot better over the course of this year. I think that there are some mild conflicts of interest in the Nerd Street game as well. Like, there is some stuff that's not quite right as far as I'm concerned, but that's more on like I don't really want to go into it here because I don't really want to bring anyone down on. I'm not trying to target anyone here, but look, I'll put it this way. I thought the challenges, VC's challenges, was really formulaic and very rinse and repeat the way that they did the show. Now, there could be like budgetary reasons for this, whatever. That's fine. I would definitely like to see a little bit more of a content-rich offering, even just for challenges in the future, if there's a budget there for that. I was really glad to see that there was like a live desk for challenges, or what was it, challenges playoffs with like Vans and Valorant out there in Philly.
Yeah,
that was great. Because I think that having casters sat in a 2-box and just the same for all 3 stages of challenges is not where we probably want to be next year. But I've worked with the Nerd Street guys, and I think they're consummate professionals generally. Like, and I was very harsh on them at the start of the year, but it wasn't the quality of their production staff. Like, I think they're all very, very good. Their League Ops guys are very, very good. So I think I'd be happy with that. But I also think that some competition wouldn't hurt in North America. But Riot would have to actually sort of tempt some other tournament organizers to dip their toe in. And right now, I don't think the way that Riot sort of structure the events and sort of allow tournament organizers to sell sponsorships and to make money off their events is great for a lot of TOs. I think it's pretty austere.
I mean, who would the competition be? Like, it was UMG that did First Strike qualifiers alongside NSG, and it was a shit show for First Strike.
And Esports Services, Esports Engine, I think would be a good one.
Right.
Other TO that Vansili's setting up for the Steel Series, they can take on the next challenge.
Yeah, let's next year. So obviously, we saw Flashpoint do a Ignition Series thing, right? I thought that was pretty good.
Yes.
They had their own problems there as well, but it was a fucking LAN, for Christ's sake. Like, that's not
in the middle of COVID. Just it's like,
and then it fucked it up, right? I think COVID, it kind of ruined that. So
for sure.
I would like to see Esports Engine do it, but there's a very good reason why Esports Engine haven't done it yet. And I would understand Esports Engine also work a bunch on Twitch rival stuff, so they're quite busy. They got a lot on their plate, and they're going to be very busy with Halo as well.
And now yes, exactly, yeah.
Nice to see just some competition for the sake of it there, but I'm pretty happy.
I just hope that in the end, even if we go into a circuit that's online for next year as well, I do agree that this type of stuff with the 3-box and everything is all good because we're working from home. We kind of have to. But I do hope that whoever is competing to get the circuit for next year will be able to add a bit more budget into making sure that it's not only about the production in teams and prize pool, but it's also about the talent. So developing talent from the analyst desks, for example, I think it would be great to have analyst desks to have people come in and hone their skills to be ready for the bigger stages. Like, I'd love to see Mimi continue on the analyst desk and practice that. I'd love to see Wyatt even coming into the scene for NA and bring into the analyst desk as well. And I hope that that's going to be considered and that the budget is there to also pay the talent too.
Yeah, we didn't have a desk, right? That was quite often
not until NA regionals.
Yeah, look, I personally don't think that is really reasonable going forward. I think there needs to be a desk. And but the budget needs to be there. But here's the problem.
Correct. It's expensive. It's expensive.
As far as the business model of NSG is concerned, it might not be viable. Which is
how they work with talent in the future is going to be interesting because you want to keep it open to let people come in like Evil Cap, Solly Up Mine and stuff, but you also need to hone that talent. Otherwise, you're just going to have people float around and then slowly just be ushered out of the scene, which has happened this year. When you look at some, like, the people that casted a lot in 2020, where are they now, specifically in North America? A lot of people have just been phased out, which is a shame, and I think that's just going to keep happening more and more, which isn't
and
good.
Here's the other thing too. Not to like discredit any of the TOs because they're all great people and I had a great time working with them. But for now, if you're thinking about it, if it's like NSGs or like the community gaming or the UMGs, what's most important for them by winning these biddings is that they have people sign up to their database so that what do? They have weekly tournaments and stuff that they run. So they're actually trying to win the long term to get like a player base that they continue to work with in the near future that's going to be outside of Riot. And this is just more like a publicity thing for Valorant in itself. So I hope that if we have people that really want to get into it too, it's like really about the broadcasting side and making the product look really good too for online.
All right. Like I said, I'd just like to see a step up. I'm happy for NSG to be involved, but I'm sure that they also would like to, step it up as well. All right, we'll be back after the break. We're going to talk to Tanny. Again, great opportunity to pick the brain of a coach who's been around the European scene for a while. We're going to talk to him, and feel free to have your questions in chat as well. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting. We were getting shoved into the break by a producer there because we've got much more show to talk about. We managed to just fucking go on about fuck all for a good hour there. So nice job, guys. Yeah,
professional ranting show. Professional ranting show.
Paid by the word, by the way. This is how we make it happen. Obviously, I'm Uber here, back with Vansili and Ryan Central. And now joining us on this side of the break is someone who's, no stranger to the European Valorant scene. He's coached a number of high-profile teams during his time over there. I want to welcome to the show for the first time, Tanny. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
What's up, brother? Doing great.
Finally on a podcast with Ryan. I've been dreaming about this for so
Literally,
long. You have no
if you
idea.
give me 10 minutes, I could be in the background of Tanny's shot there because we live about, what, like 7-8 minutes apart?
Yeah, he actually lives so close. It's crazy.
And you guys never hang out? What the fuck?
Yeah,
We've
and
been
he's
through
not
it.
on your
We went for
podcast.
Yeah, no, we
breakfast
do.
before.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
went for
Get 'em on,
breakfast
hit
before
scan?
last chance qualifiers, which was mostly a what the fuck is going on at this point? Because so many teams were like looking really good, some teams were like falling out of it a little bit. It's the typical EMEA side of stuff. I think it's the same for champions, right? The rumors I've heard of just teams that are attended champions might not exist by like 2022. Like it's just one of those things where everything is constantly in flux in this region. Fun to talk about it with somebody that knows more than I do, at least.
Mm.
I hope we can delve into at least a little bit of that during our time here. But Tanya, I want to take the opportunity. There are probably plenty, especially European fans, who know exactly who you are, and especially with the teams you've been associated with, but some who may not. So why don't you give us a bit of background on yourself, and then we'll dive into some heavy hitters.
Well, currently I'm a Valorant coach, obviously. Most recently with SMB, took them to Berlin, and before that with OG for like one tournament, and before that with Heretics for almost a year. And that was probably like the most successful roster we had. And before that, Overwatch, that's a dead game now, so let's not talk about that one.
Hopium, Overwatch 2.
Overwatch 2, still dead.
Overwatch
We were-
Mobile.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I think
It's
it
not a-
might be. They're
Yeah.
gonna
No
try.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna
No
fucking
way.
try. I think I saw something about. I mean, you guys have phones, right? Okay, I'm sure they can make it work.
Yeah, we play tested the one on Switch in like 2019.
Well, did you
or
travel
22,
to
whenever
LA
it
for
came out.
that? I remember
No,
getting
no,
a
no.
call
It
up
was
for that.
before. It was in the boot camp for Team UK. You were there. How'd you not know?
So we
You were
got,
there.
we were, I think it was Gamescom where we got, because obviously there was like rumors of Overwatch 2 at that point, and I
Yeah.
think the name that was going around was Calypso, because that was the code
Yeah.
name for Overwatch 2. So we were that's why we changed from Overwatch Central to Hitscan, because we thought that this was going to be like, kind of like how Legends of Runeterra is with League, like another game in that universe kind of thing.
Right,
Mm.
right.
And so we rebranded because we didn't know what it was going to be called. And then we got this call like, hey, do you want to come to LA for this super secret like thing? Come to the Blizzard HQ. And we were like, oh shit, it's happening, it's happening. And then it just turns out to be like Overwatch on the Switch.
Did you go to LA? in the end?
Miska did. I was like, absolutely fucking not. I'm not going
That's
to.
funny as fuck.
I think it was around the time the Borderlands 3 came out, so
Uh.
Miska kindly went to that. I think it was just after, I can't remember what it was. It was around the time of the Philadelphia Overwatch League, because
Right,
I
right.
remember sitting in the hotel lobby with Jeff, and I've forgotten the name of the main producer. I think it's Matt. They were just showing us Overwatch on the Switch, and it was really cool. It was a really nice experience. But yeah, that was I think that was the end of us making Overwatch and content when
Sure.
something like that is allowed to happen.
Yeah.
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 I mean, that was a bit ill-fated. Let's talk about a game that's not proposed to be dead, though. I want to talk about, Tony, I want to talk about what we know about next year, right? First and foremost, obviously, you know, you're no longer with SMB at the moment. And obviously for a lot of teams, there's a lengthy off-season. So I'm quite sure you, among many others, are looking at next year and the format and sort of, you know, evaluating that as, you know, someone I'm sure is going to try and maybe be involved and look at where to jump in. So we've got it here as well. We can bring them up on a screen for you guys. What we kind of know is leaked about the circuit next year. So I guess this is Valorant Zone. There you go. Another nemesis of Ryan's just fucking dominating with the content. But this is our tentative calendar for next year. So
Yeah.
looks decent.
I have
What are our
seen
thoughts?
this. I think it's not too bad. I don't think it's the best. I think if the challenges are LANs, then it's not too bad. If they aren't, then it becomes a bit of an issue where there just is not enough going on in the year. And also it starts a little bit late. I've heard other rumors about it starting now in like late January instead of like mid-February, like that leak says,
Mhm.
which I think is a little bit better because for teams who aren't in champions, the break is just way too long. You know?
So 2 months,
Like
right? Yeah, more.
it's good to get the holidays, obviously, but you can't have like 4 months doing nothing. And if you weren't in last chance qualifier or Masters 3, it's literally like a 6-month break for you, and that's just not acceptable.
Actually, I just want to ask you that question because you said that with this circuit, it looks okay if it's LANs, right? But if it's if challengers is LANs or no LANs, it's still the same amount of matches and the same type of like circuit, right? So how does that differentiate that it's gonna alleviate things or make things a little bit more bearable in a sense from a coach's perspective or just a team's perspective?
Well, not from a coach's perspective, but more thinking from an org's perspective of like who are looking to get into the scene or looking to keep a roster for 2022. If it's LANs, obviously you get more exposure, right? If you can make them, obviously. But and there's just a lot more viewership at the LANs, even if the quality of play is like equal or lower. It's still just the LAN is a lot more hype to it. So I think that's super important to put the new orgs in, because right now I know there's a few orgs who are thinking of even leaving the scene, even though with all the numbers, like viewership numbers going out there, and they're really good, it's still not enough. Like if you don't make those tournaments.
Yeah, of course.
Are you guys happy with the viewership numbers that Valorant is getting right now? Because I remember looking at the LCQ and it was, at least in NA, and it wasn't exactly sterling.
I think the NALCQ was a bit of an oddball because they had the break and then there was actually so little hype going into like the rebroadcast.
After 2 weeks, yeah.
I actually didn't even know it was being broadcast on the day until someone asked me to come to a watch party with them.
Shit.
Also the tech pauses too, just
I think the hype going into like the replanning of it just wasn't great.
Tiny saw, oh, it's just Van Silly casting the grand finals. Fuck this shit.
I mean, you had the unenviable position, Vance, of getting the grand final cast that, in my opinion, you very well deserved. With the cast that you didn't have as much reps with, and at an event that was, you know, obviously blighted by tech issues. So
yeah.
But I think the overall viewership has been pretty damn good, especially if you can make all of the tournaments, like, you know, Sentinels or Vision Strikers or whatever like that. They're doing well, and I think they're happy with the numbers. I can't speak for them, obviously. But...
Do you think that the competitive side of Valorant is heading in the right direction? Like, what was your reaction to find out that next year would look, I guess, a little similar to this one in terms of there being like a challenger circuit intertwined with game changes throughout the year? Were you maybe hoping for something a little bit more, I don't know, grandiose?
I was a bit disappointed that it was just going to be the same as this year. I thought this year's circuit, this like Dota style circuit, you know, with like the 3 majors and then like the big event at the end, was going to be a one-off. And then after that, it would delve into more like regional leagues or like non-franchised inter-regional leagues. And I know there is still a bit of talk about that, of like sub-region stuff, so like the German region or the Spanish region or whatever it may be. But yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to incorporate that into this like planned league. If they can, then I think it's actually really good. So then you don't only have the one shot in the qualifiers, you get rewarded for your like being the top in your region, you know?
Yeah.
I want to change tact a little bit here, Tani, just because obviously you were with this Heretics roster for quite a while. And I think that, you know, without asking you to divulge sort of too much, the situation that befell Heretics as that team sort of disbanded, or I mean, you know, there was, you know, an exchange of players. Let's just say that. But I know I have seen Arnau, however you pronounce his name, be very vocal about how
I don't think anything's secretive about the roster anymore, to be honest. You can ask anything.
Okay, so yeah, he it was clear to see that he felt very bitter about G2 and what they did. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because he seems to think that the players were just fucking poached or whatever. Is there any veracity to this?
There is a little bit. The players were poached, but I think this is nothing new if you know how G2 operate in even other esports.
Literally did it again with Giants, right? So
yeah, and like they had some issues in League this season as well with just poaching issues and stuff. Yeah. It's not too surprising. And there was a bit to that, but that is not the reason why they left. You know, the players weren't happy, and that was the main cause for them wanting to take this offer, because if we were in the same form and if they were as happy as, you know, when we were in first Drag Masters 1, whatever, they wouldn't have taken any other offer. You know, they were very, very happy with the team. But then as we went into Masters 2, or like the qualifiers for it, yeah, there were a lot of team issues which were kind of forced on us by the org as well. So I don't think it's fair to say that G2 just came in, ripped us apart, because it was
Sure.
like an actual team issue before that, you know, and an org issue.
Of course. Which is why, like, if the offer is there and you're already having issues, then you kind of want to take it, right? I think, even like when we were talking about before about the NA production that's been going out with these with Ye and with Xanadu so far. Even Ye said at some point, like, he felt like he reached his limit with Nbox, and the opportunity came out with Envy, and he wanted to take it. So, and just on that, talking about just like roster changes and stuff like that as a coach, because 2 weeks ago we had a couple of our prestigious NA coaches coming into the show, and we wanted to have you on as well, but unfortunately time it didn't work. So I wanted to go back into and reflect on that as well from your point of view too, especially in this era where you see this happening from Heretics, where you have like this roster change and you're trying to figure things out. And I even think like with OG at some point there was like some ruckus, right? Because there was supposed to be some players that came in and then it didn't work out, and then like it became like a whole hiatus. So for yourself as a coach, like, it must be frustrating having to deal with like a revolving door of like players and rosters that are like undetermined. We're uncertain of our future. So how do you keep this team glued in terms of like mentality? What do you have to bring to the table to make sure that you guys still have like this winning mentality going into the future matches?
I mean, I think the first thing to do is for the org to not just interfere with the roster. I think this happens way too often.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would
Play with
be
this
great
player.
if
Don't
they
play
could
with this
just,
player.
just let us do our jobs, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because that is what happened with Heretics, that's what happened with OG, and it's also in part what happened with SMB. So we're on a great track record so far.
What is it? Why are orgs? Why are they fucking up here? Like, you know,
So-
if
I mean, there's 3 very different scenarios, but
Okay.
it comes down to the org either way.
Yeah.
Like, the Heretics one, I think I can talk about. It's been a while now, and
Sure.
I feel people know. Which is that there was a coach introduced to us who was initially there as a mental coach, which was fine. He was helping Lal. He's Spanish as well, so you know they were speaking Spanish together. He was helping him with like the IGL duties and whatever he needed. And then it got to the point when he tried to do like in-game stuff as well, and the team was really unhappy with that and uncomfortable, and like he was overstepping his like job criteria, if you will. And this is a coach who was with the org in like 4 of their other esports, and now he just comes in Valorant and tries to like take over. And the players were not happy about that, and that created like the divide, which is why me, Para, Avova, and Nuki left, because we were on one side of the divide, and
Sure.
Lal and him stayed because they were on the other side. And yeah, when we wanted to make the change that, you know, we wanted him just as a mental coach, the org wasn't really willing to budge on that. You know, they were like, oh, he's worked with us for a long time, let's just, you know, we
Unreal.
trust him more, basically. And I mean, you can see how well that's turning out right now, but yeah,
that's fucking moronic. Let me just put that out there. Yeah.
Or other cases where you want a player benched and the org is like, oh no, you know, we're just not benching this player for whatever reason. And as a team, what do you do then, right?
Yeah.
Like if the players all come together and go like, yeah, you know, we actually just want this person benched. How do you continue playing with that person?
Wait,
in
is
the
this
next
OG
tournament?
we're talking about?
It's not OG. It was SMB, but yeah.
Okay. I would have believed with OG and like some like AKM
OG,
situation.
I had
I would've
no
believed it
hand
with
in
Heretics
creating
as
the
well.
roster.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
say-
I think especially in that example for Lowell, where his agent pool was it was just Sage at that point. Like, that is an argument I can understand.
I mean,
just
I'll be honest. Like, we did want Lau bench at that point, and it was for good reason because, as you said, he was a Sage one trick, and that's okay. Even if you're a one trick, as long as you're innovating how you play the agent, it can still work.
Sure.
But he just stagnated so hard. It got to the point when I had more ranked games played than him, even, which is really bad for a pro player, I feel. And yeah,
It's a
like,
very NA thing as well, I feel. There's a lot of examples of players not putting in the hours in ranks.
It's not that the team didn't even want him like to play. They wanted him, but they just wanted him to like improve and like getting rid of his like support structure with the mental coach to actually force him to improve instead of just going to him and being like, you know, everything's okay, you know, it's the rest of the team which is the issue and stuff
And
like
what,
that.
did he have the fucking mental coach in his ear telling him
Yeah,
shit
exactly.
like this?
That's the issue.
That's not a good way to be a mental coach and say, hey, the issue's not
Unfucking
yours
real.
with your team.
And this is why this is why we had such a big divide going into the transfer season, and everyone readily took the offers that came their way, you know?
Yeah. Was it cultural, do you think, that caused LoL and this mental coach to sort of create their own team here and sort of start projecting?
I think a part of it was that they were both Spanish, and it got to the point when some people were a bit uncomfortable on the team as well, because like we have a Discord server where we would just join, and you know, if we see someone in the voice channel, we can just come in there, chill, play rank, play something else, whatever is needed, you know. And then if you join the server, they're speaking Spanish, and then they transition to English for a bit, and then they go back to Spanish while you're still there. And it's a bit weird when, you want to like talk to them about something, or you know, you want to know what they're talking about if it's like in-game stuff as well. As a player, as a coach, it's just a bit odd.
Not to bash the person, but is this person qualified to be a mental coach if they're like just kind of like excluding the team?
I mean,
like
I've heard good stuff about it, and to be honest, as a mental coach, he did his job. He did do his job, and he took a lot of the pressure off Lowell during First Strike, because he'd never IGL'd before that, so he had like a lot on his shoulders doing that. And he did it perfectly for that, but then it's when you overstep the mark and it became the issue.
I see.
I'm really interested in. I know your stint with OG was really short, but this team to me was pretty odd, because I mean, obviously it featured like a lot of these, you know, these ex-Overwatch guys that were not proven quantities at all, and I had a sneaking suspicion that it was, you know, the French connection with AKM and his relationship with Red Bull and all this that sort of caused this team.
Wasn't it?
Well, Damon was the manager, obviously, and you know, like I knew the French boys in Overwatch used to, you know, they were pretty tight knit.
Yeah,
I was mates with, you know, these guys, but this didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for me. What's your take on sort of how they put together a team and maybe why this project just did not work out?
I mean, there is that connection. I mean, it was all the rogue guys, you know, from like the Overwatch early days. Surprised to see them playing together after like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, at the start they were actually pretty decent. We saw a lot of improvement with them. Someone at OG actually contacted me because we used to scrim them almost every day. They were like our warm-ups for all of our first trade games and everything. And they were good and they were improving a lot. But then they just hit a hard skill ceiling, I think, in how they approach the game, and they just couldn't like overdo that, and they just kept on making roster changes, didn't work, and I didn't know why until I joined the team, and then it became obvious where their approach to the game was just completely not what I thought it would be.
Okay.
It was wanting it to be a bit too perfect, like thinking it was CS, so they needed to make all the ability usage perfect, all of the like executes need 5 people using all of their utility before you go in and stuff like that, you know.
Set play oriented,
like, like multiple setups per site, per map, and it's just a bit too much. I think this game lends itself to be more reactive than that, like way more. You can't just make an execute with that much utility, because what happens if one person dies? Someone else doesn't have the same ability.
It's a house of cards, right?
Like in CS, yeah. In CS, everyone has the mollies, everyone has the smokes, everyone has the flashes. It's just not the same. So yeah, I think that was the biggest issue, and they were unwilling to change that. So it just wasn't a good fit for me as well.
So then going into that, like going always to having to rebuild and stuff like that too. What goes into your work for your like your day to day to prepare your team in terms of like strategies and looking at that as well? Like, And how much in terms of like your coaching strategy goes around like anti-stratting and stuff like that too? Like what's going on in that brain of yours to prepare a team?
I mean, before a match, I pull up like a scouting report and stuff. I give it to the team. I didn't expect them to like remember everything. And I go over them. I go over some of it with them in the server, and the most important parts, basically what I go over. So it's the main habits of what people do is what I go over, rather than like, oh, they're doing this exact execute. We need to counter it in this way, so let's run this exact counter strat. You know, because I don't think most teams work like that, and when they do, it's pretty obvious to counter them anyway. So when you come up against a team like FPX who does do something like that, I think it's actually way easier to play against them than it is to play against a team like G2, who is much more on the fly,
free flowing,
reactive style, and like, unpredictable.
Do you think that's an optimal way to play Valorant? Because you mentioned obviously one of OG's biggest problems is they want to be too perfect. Do you think that like raw, instinctive, adaptive approach is the best way to do it?
I absolutely think that. I think there's no surprise that Sentinels was the best team in the world for so long because of that. Like, when you watch someone like Sick play or someone like Shazam play, the way they look at the game is absolutely insane. They know the reads, they know exactly what's happening, they know exactly what's going on around them, and how to actually react to that. And it's so hard to do on the fly while maintaining the firepower as well.
How do you teach a team this though, Tanny? How do you create this in a team?
It's hard looking for potential, and there's not like a metric for that. And you just kind of have to like see it and know. And I know that sounds stupid from like a coaching perspective, because like, how do you differentiate one player from the other, you know? And there's a lot of coaches who use like stats in their work to like differentiate them as well. But sometimes you just gotta like take things on like faith and like how you see them and like how you see them play with their teammates and things like that. And yeah, that's how I've always built teams. That's how we built Heretics to be, you know, the best team in Europe, because we picked up Niso, who no one was looking at that point, just because of how insane he was. Nookie was like Diamond 3 in the game. And, like, Para was Immortal 1, and we just picked them up, and we made the roster work because you can see their approach to the game and how good it was, rather than like their level at that point. And sometimes it just clicks together so well, and it just works, you know.
And when you say scouting report at the same time, I'm always thinking about, I'm gonna get a free plug here now to Run It Back. So like Run It Back, they have like this this Radiant category where you could actually do scouting reports and get like heat maps and stuff like that too
as well.
Yeah, so you work on that stuff. Does this help? For like for you to like manage your stuff as a coach?
Some things help. Honestly, there's a lot in it which I could never use for the team. But there are some things which help. Especially in Europe, the one which helped us a lot was the AWP positions, the AWP kills. For enemy teams, especially when you're playing against someone like CNED, you need to know exactly where he is. or like Kellogg's, you just know exactly where they are, and then you can like counter them like, oh, they always take these peaks on, you know, long or whatever.
How do you do it for Ye? He's all over the fucking place.
Yeah, it's harder then. It's a lot harder.
One thing I wanted to ask, because like we've gone through like all of the honest stuff with Heretics, and you mentioned like D-Cell, like I feel at that point as well, because he hasn't been in the scene since he left that Heretics team, and I think a lot of people assume that because it was like cheating accusations, but I think at this point it's unlikely, right? Or especially from
he wanted to play actually with just a German team, you know, just a German mix with his friends in the qualifiers to Berlin in Masters 3, but I don't think he was allowed to because of some ongoing contract issue or something.
Okay.
But yeah, right now he's chilling. He's doing fine. He's working at his uncle's tattoo studio.
Hell yeah.
And He says he makes more money than we did at Heretics, so that's good.
All right, well, fair enough, I guess.
Artistic bloke. That's actually pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, do what you like, you know. Like
For sure.
esports, it's a dream for most people. It's a dream for me, but
Yeah.
it's just not that you can't assume that for everyone at all,
That's
no
it.
matter how
Sure.
good you are at it.
Sorry, Mitch.
You're fine, you're fine.
Yeah, just to add real quick, because you want to pursue this dream here, Tanny, continuing to like the esports circuit and stuff like that. And now we're actually in this downtime of what's going on with like champions, right? We can't do anything until you mention like this January, February. So like outside of what's going on with now, I think you made it official that you parted ways with SMB. That SMB pretty much, the rumors is that it's really no more as well. How do you deal with this off time? What do you do? Like, how do you put yourself out there? What's going on in
outside of going to breakfast with Ryan Central on his birthday?
I mean, I was going to breakfast every day then.
It's either that or stacking silver on Yinsu's stream and running into stream snipers and then just getting dicked on by Smurfs. Like that is all we were doing. It was a nightmare.
We still need to go to barbecue actually. There's a really
yeah.
nice barbecue place.
That sounds good.
But yeah, right now, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed with how things are shaping out in both EU and NA because I've been looking in both regions.
Yeah.
And EU is weird because no matter what the team is, they seem to not want to make any changes to coaching staff.
Mm.
They have like no results the whole year, and they're like, oh yeah, let's just kick like 3 great players and keep our coaching, management structure, everything. And they just have like full faith in them, which I think is a bit weird.
Do you think they're letting coaches off too easy and then putting a lot of the blame on the players?
I think if you look at a lot of the top teams and if you look at what they've accomplished in the whole year, and you'll be very surprised to see some of them returning for next year and half of their roster gone. It's a bit weird. I'm not sure I understand it fully, and I have talked to a lot of orgs about like what their plans is and why they think they keep them, and the consensus is just, we just trust them to do what's right. It's like, okay, like what do you say to that? Like if you can't get the results, but you just trust them.
Yeah,
sure,
it's interesting.
What's the other end of the spectrum though for NA? Is it like based off what you're currently seeing with FaZe recently picking up JDM going to the LCQ, Rockets with Sentinels right now? Like what's your take on that, and how do you perceive like the coaching scene currently in North America and your opportunities out here?
You tweeted, Tanny tweeted, I saw this. He's like, if anyone figures out the new Sentinels coach, they've got the biggest fucking brain in the world.
I mean, who would have guessed that one, right?
Right.
Yeah, none
like,
of us. None of us.
I got told it a couple hours before that tweet, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, "What is happening?"
So what is it? What is it that is so shocking about that? I mean, I think we all have an idea.
Because one, I thought he was just staying on FaZe, and two, I thought they would go for an actual coach rather than a player who, as far as I know, hasn't coached. Like, I've known Rockets since, like, even before Overwatch League, and I don't think he's ever coached or anything like that. So it was just a bit odd, like seeing a random player being picked up, and well, not random, but just a player from another team being picked up instead of someone who's an actual coach. When there are a lot of coaches available, like even in NA, like Mike's or MCE or whoever.
I mean, and you're in a position obviously where you're wanting to get back into sort of coaching a team here, and you're sort of seeing this potentially birth of a trend of now, like maybe the first wave of retiree players is coming up, and some of them are moving into coaching positions. So I'd love to know just sort of how you feel about that, and if you think that's really viable. And obviously, I think you obviously have a vested interest in high value being placed on one such as yourself who've been coaching for a while. But I'd love to get your honest thoughts on whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe it
depends,
really
on the player.
person.
Yeah, it completely depends on the player. Like, there are a lot of players who I think would make excellent coaches who, as I said, see the game just in a completely different way, If, for example, like Sick retired today, he'd probably be like the best coach in NA.
Sure.
Like, that's a given just because of like how on point they are But there's some players who, just don't see the game the same way, or a bit more just about their mechanical skill and whatnot. But I don't think those are the sort of people you want as coaches. The one that surprised me about Raucus was I can see him being a good coach because he has the IGL experience and stuff like that. So he does know how to like command a team and like actually control them in what they do. But FaZe was not the most tactical team in how they played, so that's what makes it a bit odd for me. The
Babybay they were a great example of
great.
that. Yeah, they're a great example of like a team that was pretty instinctive, but also hit a hard fucking ceiling.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of teams like that, though. I think even Heretics throughout Stage 3 were like that, where they were crushing everyone, and everyone thought, like, oh, they're going to go to the EMEA playoffs,
Yes.
And then you realize that style of play, the duelist go kill play, doesn't work at high tiers. Like, it doesn't work against everyone.
Yeah.
And especially it doesn't work against teams who are completely prepared for your one and only play,
Yeah.
And I think it's a big issue. And he's been on the team since January or whenever the team came about. So it's surprising to see that there was no changes made to that like playstyle. Which is why I'm a bit skeptical about his coaching, because he should know those are issues in the team, and he should be leading the charge to fix them as the IGL.
Yeah. I think to think about that too from FaZe, it's like a level of trust that they all have for each other as well, right? So that when it comes down to Raucus to potentially have that, game sense or the IGL experiences or the mindset to be able to understand how the game is being played, but they still had to understand the game and adapt it to a style that enables more Babybay and Corey in their aggressive play style. And I think when I watched the interview again with Backchat, and I'm also looking at the NA content that just came out with Vanity, where Vanity had the interview with Babybay for the Valorant esports stuff, I feel that they both have like similar minds in a sense that they both have that type of in-game play style that just wants to piss off and mold their opponents, which is cool because Raucus was mentioning how he likes to just have like a bunch of like random darts or anything else that just catches people off guard to be like, well, how the fuck, like, how did they come up with this, or why did they think about this kind of stuff? Where Vanity just wants to play plays with like a shotgun or anything that's just gonna specifically make somebody mad. So I kind of like how, with the mindset that Raucus has and probably the experience that Sentinels is looking for in terms of like player experience at the pro level, because they know now timing, rotations, how the pushes are going about, and that type of implementation that could be added into Shazam's IGL style could maybe help. So I see like that style for Raucus with the team, but JDM was still a big question mark for me for sure.
But do you think Sentinels need that sort of style? I think, like, strats-wise and knowing the in-game stuff, I think they're actually pretty set on that,
I think they need someone they can respect.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm actually surprised they even picked up a coach. Like, I thought they'd go into Champions just fixing their mistakes and, giving it their best shot.
Yeah.
Because as far as I understood with my, like, talks with people on the team, they know their mistakes and they know exactly how to fix them. So I don't think Raucus is going to come in there with something like inspirational. So what is his function then,
I wonder?
Yeah, this is the thing. I think they maybe just need someone, more as like a hype man, motivator, someone calling the tech pauses, maybe someone looking more at the enemy team so that Shazam can just focus on his own team.
Exactly. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think we all speculated that type of like alleviate a little bit of pressure, a little bit of weight off Shazam's shoulders by understanding a little bit the tendencies for the enemy teams and how it could work. But
yeah,
even the clarification came out from Raucus is like, I think there comes to a point where he wants to implement his view and the way that he sees the game, and that how maybe that could also help maybe shape up or evolve the current play style.
Or it might not. It might not. If he wasn't able to affect change on phase, then the way he sees the game might not necessarily be optimal, especially through.
But it might work with the roster that Sentinels currently has, right? So I think that's the time frame that you kind of need from Raucus too, to be like, I'm not going in right now just to fully change the way that I see the game and see how Sentinels should play it now, because he even said it himself, like they know exactly, like Sentinels knows exactly how they play and what they should do against their teams, because that's how they were shitting on FaZe all the fucking time too, right? So it's the type of respect into bringing like, oh hey, here's like how you should bring the strategy. Be like, who the fuck are you? Like we beat you all the time. Like you don't bring that extra. But I think if it's a certain flair to be like, this could maybe work in this type of play style for this team, and give that option to Shazam, then I think it's totally fine as well.
The thing is, even if it doesn't work, the damage to the team is actually so minimal, because even if you don't know exactly what your opponent's doing, or if you don't have the extra little added bit of info from them, of their like habits and whatever else, you can always still play your own game, which is something that Sentinels absolutely know how to do.
Yeah.
So I think there's like the worst case scenario for him is still like absolutely fine for the team, you know? Like no matter if he's good or bad, the team will, I think, actually do really well at Champions.
It's also just a scapegoat if they don't do well at Champions. Like,
the fall guy.
People are just gonna blame Raucus for that, right? I think it's more the rapport of it as well.
Yeah.
Just having somebody that has a bird's eye view of what happened. So if you have those situations of how on earth did so and so get through our spawn, like Raucus obviously has a view that you can solve any disagreements or arguments on whose fault it is. And I mean, if he's not with FaZe because FaZe disbanded, he's probably just a free agent. It's frankly not doing anything in that time as well. So just having literally a sixth man to just keep an eye out for them on stuff they can't focus on.
I think the
one thing I wanted to ask is,
be
sorry.
a great. Sorry, I was going to say, I think the tech pauses are going to be like one of the main things he focuses on, and like just seeing what info he can get to give to the team mid-game. I think that's going to be the biggest contributor.
I don't know when it was the last time that you were in watching scrims, but like looking at the 4 EMEA teams that head into Champions, what has been your scrim bucks on them, either from playing Supermassive Blaze with Supermassive Blaze way back when, or even just stuff that you've heard and seen beforehand? Because I think a lot of people are writing off Fnatic very early in this one, despite them. Really, they shouldn't have shown anything at home ground, right? Like, it would have been silly for them to show any strategies, so...
I don't know about that one. I think the home ground issue wasn't their strategies. I think it was their team play. They looked so, like, out of tune with each other in how they did everything. And I don't know if it was just because the first map they played was Fracture, and they weren't used to the map, but... they had no idea what the hell they were doing on that side. Like on A side, the first round, I think on Plat Chat they mentioned this as well. Just the pistol round is all you need to watch to realize they have no idea what they're doing in how to defend that site. Like the timings were completely off. They had no awareness of where people could be coming from, and I genuinely don't know if they just never scrimmed the map or not.
Jesus.
And it's bad if you can't tell. But EU Scrimbucks, I'd say Liquid. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think Liquid is actually slightly better than Gambit right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think they are going to be the best EMEA team going into Champions.
I do agree.
Isn't there a worry that they've shown too much? Because we have seen a lot of them recently that I imagine it's easier to anti-strat them than, say, Vision strikers that we haven't seen in months that have probably worked on a lot of shit.
Yeah, but it's still 2 months. It's a long time since LCQ, and I don't think they were taking Red Bull like completely seriously either.
Sure.
And Sliggy is actually a very good coach, so he can actually come up with more stuff if needed, you know?
Let's bring this
and
up.
Bacon helped.
Tony, you made some power rankings for Champions. This is a great segue, I think, into sort of talking about who we think is going to be top. Do we have that? Daniel! Thank you. All right, let's talk about some of these power rankings here. So, I mean, All right. Anything? I throw this one to Vans and Ryan. Anything that sort of reaches out to you guys here? Ascend and Fnatic there in that B tier below C9 and Envy is. I mean, it's interesting.
Poor
I
SEA. It's just its own little sub ranking.
I mean, that's also partly because I don't watch as many games, so I can't judge too harshly on them.
I was
like
gonna
an
say about
assumption.
SEA because I feel that you might be able to get some upsets in there. In that-
Yeah.
especially that Group D. I think Full Sense on D might be a little bit too low, but at least SAB I think it makes sense for me.
This was made before the groups came out, so yeah, I'm not sure
I
if
think
stuff
that's
would change
better, though,
now.
still.
Yeah.
You sort of explained Fnatic, like, despite them looking a bit wonky, they still have potential to be. It's not like they're like Vivo, Keyed, or Crew level, right? Like, there's still a chance of Fnatic. It's going to be hard with their group, considering, but I'm curious
I
as to why you
see
don't
them
rate. Sorry, go on.
making it out. I didn't see them making out the group at all.
I think that's understandable, though. Like, I also think the Full Sense could actually do some damage. Like, if either Cloud9 or Fnatic got eliminated by Full Sense, that would not surprise me in the slightest, considering how good they looked for LCQ. I personally rate Ascend and Envy at the exact same level. I think it's very difficult to separate them. Is the fact that Envy's in A tier, I think it is, and Ascend being in B tier, is that based on how they did at Champions? Is that based on what we saw from Ascend in Home Ground and LVP? Why rate Envy so highly, but Ascend not quite on the same level? Because I think they're very, very equal in terms of what they bring to the table. Maybe Ascend a little bit more because I don't have faith in Chet coaching Envy in the same way that I did with Mike's. But I think that's just personal bias because I love Mike's.
Yeah,
Look, Chet's been on 4
love
different
Mike's as
teams in
well.
NA in the last 3 months, so let's just put that out there.
Yeah, like he's the Steve Bruce of Valorant at this point. Let's be honest. If for any football fans, just
I mean, they're all tier 1 teams as well. I don't quite understand it, but however you get the job, I guess. I think it comes down to it being like the biggest LAN of the year, and I think Ascend will have a bit more pressure on them for that. They have players who don't have as much experience on LAN. The NA players, they looked rock solid from game 1, you know, in Masters Berlin. So, and Ascend were very shaky. Like the game they played versus us to qualify out of the group was probably the worst game of Valorant I've seen from both sides in like on Split. That was actually the worst map of Valorant I've ever seen in my life.
You think they went about it in the right way, though, from playing home ground at pretty much full send, I suppose, and also LVP as well. They got to play a bit of a LAN. Like we've seen Zeke and stuff mention, the only way to get better is to play properly. We're not sandbagging. We don't want to be that team. We're going to play it seriously, right? So I imagine Ascend went about things the right way to get better on officials.
Yeah, the extra LAN experience definitely helped, but you're playing movie star raiders, you know. You're not playing. I mean, it's no knock on them, but it's not Envy, it's not Cloud9, it's not who else is in that group? Sorry.
Vivo Keen.
We're
talking about
in Ascend's group. It's it's
Vision Strikers. Vision Strikers and Cloud9 is the 2 people in your group you have to beat. Oh no, sorry, Ascend. Sorry, I completely mistook that. Yeah, Vivo Keyed and Envy. I just don't think they can beat Envy with like the pressure they have. I think they'll make it out of the group, but I think that last match before they make it out of the group will be the messiest match they have as well. Because I think the pressure really gets to the team. It's a very emotional team. Like when you play against them, you know, when they're doing well, they're all like shouting, they're all
singing,
you know, like
yeah,
singing, clapping their hands, whatever it is, you know. But the downside of being that emotional when you're winning is that when you're not winning, when you're losing, start off the map bad, it's very hard to come back when you don't have that same mentality. And it's I think it would definitely get to them, the pressure, and that's why I rate Envy a bit higher than them, just because they proved that they do not crumble under the pressure, you know, even coming up against like Sentinels, coming up against who else did they play before that?
Oh shit! They lost to Gambit. They beat Sentinels, and then who did they go before that?
They lost to Vision Strikers.
Was that Ascend itself?
Ascend beat SB twice. If we're talking about Supermassive.
No, we're talking about Envy.
Yeah.
Envy, yeah, they beat.
Ascend and Sentinels. Yeah, Ascend and Sentinels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I I think Envy just did way better on LAN, and I think that's the deciding factor there.
Now,
yeah, Sentinels 100 Thieves, sorry. Oh, but before we continue, I do have to take a step back and give a little bit of a defender side here to my homie Chet. Not because he's a homie, but also we also have to face the facts as well, though, that despite the teams that Chet has been coaching and playing for, those teams also haven't really found any type of like real results going
You're
through.
defending
like,
him, right?
Yeah, I'm defending Chet.
I'm defending Chet. Yeah.
I think he's still gonna do pretty decent with a team with like Envy that actually has like a roster that could actually perform very well. Because if you look back at TSM or back at Energy, with him being gone, and you, for example, have Josh RT with Energy, or you're looking at TSM overall in terms of who they picked up as players to try out and whatnot, they're still not being able to find that right solution yet as like a core team, a team that could actually make an impact. And I think, yes, a coach brings a lot to a roster to help out a team, but it's also the team itself that has to perform. So like Hayes, another great example too. Like they needed an IGL for Energy for the longest time ever since he lost Daps. Now you have Hayes that has that experience. He's able to probably manage Som very well because they know each other very well. He does have a very big all-star roster in there. But when you have a roster where Som played Duelist at some point, Tex played Duelist at some point, Android played Duelist for Nbox, which is the same problem that we had with TSM. How do you make that work, right? So I think it's a lot more than just like what the coach was able to bring at the table, but what were the players able to bring on the table as a core? It's not there yet, right?
Listen, I mean,
but is it not up to the coach to get the right players in?
Yeah. But sometimes too, like again, I'm devil's advocate.
Sometimes the org gets in the way.
Yeah,
the
org.
Exactly what I was gonna say. The org gets in the way. You
like,
don't have that fucking say.
We just don't know the full story with like anyone. To be honest, like
it was slightly facetious, obviously. You know, Chet's on much different teams, but those teams, in fairness, yeah, like they weren't great. So you could argue that it was he left because they weren't great, or they weren't great because he was. It's fine. Like we had him on the show, and I thought he gave a totally fine account of himself. So this is not
for sure.
We're not bashing the guy. It's just obviously it's never a good look. It's not like no one wants 3 different jobs in the space of like 6 months on their resume, right? I'm sure.
Of course.
It doesn't look great. Yeah. Anyway, so as we move on, Tani, what's up next for you? Obviously, there's going to be a bit of downtime in Europe, obviously for those teams that aren't partaking in champions. But you got anything coming up? Anything you can tell us about? What are you up to?
So I mean, there was an initial roster shuffle, like after LCQ, which is still kind of going on with some players being trialed and a couple coaching staff changes. But I think after Champions there'll be even more, and I think the second time is probably going to be a bit better to try and find something.
Sure.
But at this stage, I'm not even sure if I prefer NA or EU. If I got like an offer from both regions, I think I would actually take NA, just because this is gonna. I'm a traitor for saying this, but I do think NA is just the better region right now. Like in terms of, if you look at like the top 10 teams, top 15 teams there, the average level of them is better than the ones in EU.
Okay.
Which is
nothing
a bit
wrong
odd.
with that. Nothing wrong with that. I'm
finally getting some backup on this show. This is like the first time he's had another North American advocate. He has to deal with fucking Yinsu and Mitch half the time. So
I mean, I don't think it was the case at the start of the year. I think the changes that the teams have been making has actually been improving them, whereas the changes that EU teams have been making, I feel has been making them worse.
Sure.
And it's a bit weird to see that teams are just, kicking players just because they need a change and then picking up someone who's just slightly worse. And it doesn't really make sense to me. Whereas in NA, they are actually improving their team, at least on paper. I don't know exactly how stuff works.
I think the orgs
like
as well
on their
coming
specific
in, like
teams, but
Guard, KCP, Dark Zero. I feel like as you've got a lot of those tier 1 players from like 2020 sort of moving down into other organizations. I don't think you have that with EMEA all that much. And even just the coaches that are now, LFT as well. Like you've got Emil that because Nip have gone to Brazil, like he's out of it. Ilzinho as well. Like there's a lot going on. And I imagine it's probably a little bit fucking annoying to see people like Rock's being picked up for Sentinels, people like Chet being picked up in place of somebody like Mike's for. I imagine from a coaching perspective, even though it has nothing to do with you, it just hurts your soul to see.
Ryan. Yes.
Yeah. Allegedly, but you know what I mean. Where it's just like it must be disheartening at the very least to see.
Yeah, me and Mike's talk. Me and Mike's talk pretty often, and it's always entertaining to see what news has passed in the last week with regards to coaching stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, there's some odd decisions being made out there, but as I said, I think NA ones are actually improving, so that's good to see. EU ones not so much.
What about SEA actually though, right? If you're looking at how we haven't had a chance to see a lot of these games yet, but you're seeing that, for example, teams like Full Sense getting like quote-unquote upset wins over the new turns, or like the damn ones are not doing so well in the region, or like you're even looking at Japan looking a little bit better too, because Northeption is another one of those teams that made it pretty far in the SEA. So if the opportunity was there, would you actually take those too, like what Shinobi did going into like coaching the Indian team?
I mean, I'd do it if it was a language I could speak, because I think that was a big issue on SMB for me, where I wanted to say stuff, but I just couldn't sometimes without going through like the head coach. And it's okay when it's in scrims and stuff, but it's a lot harder when it's on stage. And I'm like trying to call for a pause, but I'm in this like back room, not on stage, so I can't. And yeah, there's just things I want to say to the team in game, right there and then. But I just can't, and that really hurts, So
you're trying to drive the car from the trunk.
What about Game Changes Orgs? Because like from the looks of it, that is a scene that is going to grow a lot. You got Karkas coaching G2 as well, which is an odd one, but I imagine is probably on the lookout for. I don't want to say legitimate coaches because I don't want to like shit talk anybody that's in Game Changes, for example. Like, because Karkas isn't the first person that comes to mind to be
on Wave Esports.
He's just been a player.
Yeah. He was a player though, which is why it's weird again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd actually be open to Game Changes if they had to wait into the actual circuit. I think that's the biggest thing stopping me.
Sure.
So like, if you had any way, no matter how remote, like even the Indian teams have one slot in the LCQ for SEA. For Asia. So that's at least a chance. But right now there is no chance into the main circuit, into the LANs, and I think that's just the biggest reason not to do it.
Totally fine. Well, we wish you luck with that, Tanny, as well. Thanks for coming on the show. Great to pick your brain about a lot of what's going on in Europe. Appreciate you being so transparent as well, mate. All the best.
No problem at all.
Good luck,
Thank
Tanny.
you for having me, guys.
We'll see you in the circuit next year, man. In NA. Let's go.
Let's hope so.
See you at Spoons.
See you at a barbecue place. Right?
Redacted barbecue place.
Oh, guys, that was great. Great to hear from Tanny there as well. And honestly, like it's pretty rare that we get that degree of insight, I think, into team projects that ultimately end. Even 6 months out from them, as it were the case. So, I think that was quite illuminating for sure. Let's crack on and talk a little bit about the event that went on over the weekend. Of course, Game Changes Series 3 in EMEA made its way to its conclusion. You can see here, this is obviously our playoff bracket here with, GuildX, Oxxgen, Footballist is in there, Rix GGG to Tenstar. So we had some great matchups, some that were definitely pretty highly anticipated here. One of the ones that I found the most interesting, though, it was Oxxgen against Tenstar here with a 2-1. Tenstar was obviously sort of, I could be wrong here, but I think they were expected to be number 1, if not number 2, right?
Yeah, they won Game Changers 1 and 2, so
exactly
they were obviously wanting the triple. The only negative aspect of it was the Game Changers 2, they got knocked down to the lower bracket and then made the run to get back into the finals and then to win it. So it wasn't too much of a surprise to see them go down to the lower bracket against G2.
Right.
But running into Oxxgen, this was the grand final in Game Changers 2, right? This matchup in itself. I think the fact it was a best of 5 helped out Tenstar quite a lot. It's what I said because I was on the broadcast the day before this, and I said, I could see Oxygen beating Tenstar because it's a best of 3, not a BO5. And lo and behold, it happened.
Why is that though?
I think so. I'll be honest. I was away this weekend, so I unlike Vansily, I didn't watch all of the VODs.
Doesn't watch VODs.
He doesn't watch the VODs. But from sort of looking at the stats and seeing some of the maps and some of the plays, I think for Tenstar, you have like in the same place like Clark. She is the main jeweler. She is the race player that gets the most done. But Lorelia was like my MVP for the finals in Game Changes too. So seeing her bottom frag, I think kind of says a lot. And Oxygen weren't too far behind. Like, I think when you look at those top 4 teams of G2, Guild, Oxygen, and Tenstar, if you ran this event again, I think you'd still have the same top 4 because they are quintessentially the top 4 teams in the region, but I think they could be in any different order. Like, it's so close. And I think considering how NA looks with Cloud9 White dominating, which is great, I think as a viewer and somebody on the broadcast, I'm more interested in events like this where any of the 4 teams could realistically win than kind of expecting Cloud9 White to come in and dominate. Like, I know Vansilly's done a bit of Game Changes. I don't know if he feels the same, but it is super exciting to see this region be so competitive.
Yep.
In its nascent period. This is like Game Changes 0 for me.
Yeah, totally.
And if the circuit and scene is much bigger and broader next year, I'm very excited in how the landscape's going to look.
For sure. And even when I want to look at like the bracket of, because I didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to see the grand finals or watch it yet, but I've watched the upper finals and the lower finals of the Guild versus G2. Yeah, exactly. So looking at that one in the upper finals and then looking at the lower finals of Oxygen versus Guild. Overall, though, I think the there's still a little bit of work that's needed from like the European scene for Game Changers compared to what we're currently seeing in North America. And this is not to be biased at all. This is really looking at it from an objective
C9 White
point of
would
view.
be any of those 4 teams.
Exactly.
Without a doubt.
I think so. C9 White and even Shopify Rebellion, I think, could be one of those teams that could actually just beat. And even if you're looking at the TSMs in the world, because overall, when I was watching, like Guild has skills in terms of like every one of these women are able to frag in terms of like crosshair placement, shooting, all that, great. But I think in terms of like the fundamentals of being able to use their utility to gain map control, that was left to be desired a little bit when I was watching these games. And we weren't really taking advantage of rotations as well for a game like Valorant. Like Valorant seems to have, when you're looking at it now, it's really focused on rotating your opponent so you can gain map control on the attacker side. And I feel that I've seen nothing but, like set hits all the time from either of these teams that I was watching, right, and going into the upper and lower finals. Even more intriguing for me for Guild Esports was that they were buying almost every single round. It felt like I was watching Sempis call for TSM and Counter-Strike Go again, where you're just buying and buying and buying. And I get the idea is that you're trying to play around like the ults that are already available, and you're using like maybe ults to clear space, to gain space, and then use your Spectres into close range battles. But that never really worked for them in most of the cases. Whereas if they actually tried to manage their economy a little bit better, then great. I think they'll look a lot stronger going into the later rounds of Game Changers in the region. And I also think that overall, we're still kind of playing this game as if we're kind of playing Counter-Strike, where we're doing a lot of like body peeks, or trying to play contact instead of trying to play utility to clear angles. Like, show your hand, show that you're using an Allen drone towards the side of the map. If you could actually win by numbers, you get a tag. That's a free kill. You still get a numbers advantage going into the site, or even better, you get a kill from tagging with an Allen drone. Then that allows somebody else to rotate across the map or to push forward across the map to pull the rotation away, pull the flank, and rotate back. So I think that type of like deeper layers of like of the play style is lacking a bit, but I think in due time it'll look a lot better going into the next year of Game Changers. But I still think NA looks a lot better in that sense.
Let's follow along with GuildX's run through this bracket, right? Obviously they take on G2 Gozen twice. Now, my impression is that people are more surprised to see GuildX at this top end of the bracket, even more so than seeing Tenstar go out to Oxygen here. So I mean, is this a surprise, Ryan? I suppose for Guild to sort of, turn into a team that can, go down lower bracket here. They can beat Oxygen. They can take a map off G2 Gozen in the finals. Is this, do we anticipate this, or is this a little bit of coming of age for this team, even at this early stage?
I think the main thing is that GuildX, I think, before Game Changes 1 was played, were the firm favorites of the region. Before we'd really seen much of Tenstar or G2, the originals as they were in CS, bringing in Anya at that point as well. The Guild were the favorites, but they've kind of underperformed on a few various occasions. First event was single elimination, so that's fine. That's very easy to happen. I think more than anything, it was just if they didn't make a final in these 3 Game Changes events, I would have been very concerned, considering this is a team that was the dominant force across all of the third-party events that were happening in the region before Game Changers officially came to be. I think for me, I'm trying to I think both G2 and Guild had the same issues. I think for me, it helped GuildX be a bit more consistent with their agent picks. Like Cinnamon, for example, was very much the NA secondary duelist for the most part. But we did see them move and change to other roles, mostly the Sky. Roxy as well, moving over to play Breach. It's a very, look at the comp for Guild. It's insanely strong when it comes to the firepower that you have, playing off of each other, the utility there for the most part. I think for Oxygen, they've always been consistent and up there. They have the individuals. It's just about ironing out some of the glaring issues that they've had decision-making wise. Also not relying on gear too much. For me, I think it's that G2 and Guild should have been up here. And you also have to bear in mind that because it's the last 2 days that have been broadcasted for both Game Changes 1 and 2, there's a lot of reel and footage on how Oxygen, Tenstar, and also teams like Rix have played and the old G2. I think Guild benefited from the fact that nobody had really seen any show reel, any VODs of how they play because they weren't on broadcast ever. So I think they always should have been up there. And I think that them making a final was the least that they could do, honestly speaking. So I'm glad that they at least got to do that. Otherwise, it's a bit concerning going into what happens next year.
Yeah, I think overall, too, like, Cinnamon, I think, was also known as Claudia, and she played with like the CLG red team like back then in CS. So they have like good experience. They have good firing, like a good firing squad in that roster. I think Smurfette actually looked pretty good as a duelist too. Like if Cinnamon was able to get those flashes in for Smurfette to move in, she was running across every single like angle inside the site and was able to actually get like at least like 1 or 2 to open up sites to allow Guild to actually get into these winning conditions, right? And even this matchup between Guild and also looking at the lowers for Oxygen, I think that the Sky. Can we go back to that slide?
Is that 3 different Breach players, by the way, on Guild?
Yeah. So I think Cinnamon will play Reyna on Split, and then Glance would go into Breach on Split because they don't have a Silva, right? So I think that's how it changed a little bit in terms like from map to map, or maybe it was even Roxy that was playing Breach on that map. But Proxima at the bottom right there too. I think despite like Baby Dot seeing her name on that on the kill feed a lot, I think that she's been an important part into Oxygen's progression as a team, because playing that Sky, I think when I was watching their matches, she had like probably 3 or 4 Seekers in a half. So she had, so actually I take that back. That means that you actually do see her name on the scoreboard a lot, and they were doing a great job for farming orbs for Oxygen to allow like at least getting something great with the ultimates to move in and help the team for Oxygen Gaming. So again, like I said, give it a couple of months, then the region will continue to look pretty strong as they continue to one-up each other in a sense. But I think if you're able to utilize your utility a little bit better to run these rotations for these teams, they'll topple down NA in no time. But for now, I still think NA prevails.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, listen, I mean, this has been a big result for G2 Gozen, I think, being able to, obviously not that it was Tenstar in a final there, but, to come out with a sort of a clean win. There was, I don't know what I was thinking, I guess the problem for G2 Gozen is that there's always going to be this discussion around like the regional rivalry already here. So, no sooner do they get out of this best of 5 final in which they only dropped the one map. There's, the whole discussion about whether they can handle playing against NA is, comes up. So, I mean, this is the nature of, I think, of, our
high
Valorant
storylines.
fans.
We take it. We take it.
Yeah, I
sure.
think we love, we obviously love these kinds of storylines here. But let's talk about this a little bit here. G2, coming out with a victory here in this particular series and taking it all away. It's a great result.
Yeah, I think again this comes down to that storyline where Guild were force buying like a lot. That I was saying before.
Sure.
When even some rounds when they're playing on Bind, you had some rounds where they're even playing stingers on Bind, trying to like just hurt the economy going into G2, and it makes kind of sense because on these rounds they lose are the rounds that were starting to get very close until G2 started to run away with the game. It was Guild that were able to like potentially lose the round with like a 1v2 or like whatever, where the economy is still sort of at the brink of the breaking point for G2, what they had to go for a save. And because you're like continuing to get these max bonus slots for Guild, and you're getting spike plants, and you're getting the ults on top of that, you're always thinking that you have what it takes to be able to break that eventually against G2. But there's just something that happens into like G2's defense that just allowed for them to just pull through. So I think that was a storyline of like GuildX overall in the matches that I've watched, where I think that money management and understanding like these half buys, and maybe just trying to put full strength into full shields instead of like half shields, and trying to use like your Vandal, your op into its advantage will probably help the team, because Smurfette also was bringing out the op as a jet, pretty decent with it too from time to time, and with a little bit more work they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think overall for a lot of teams minus Oxxgen, they need to get that jet op in check, because you got some teams like Tenstar, Cloud mostly just plays the Raze, so you're not really going to get that op in potential. But then some of the bits that we saw from Smurfette, Fatal as well from SES, it just wasn't good enough really for the levels that you sort of expect. And it's less like they're missing shots, it's just they don't put themselves in position to really get the most out of the op. They prefer to use the rifle, which I understand from a comfortability position. But if you're a team that's decent at opping against a team that doesn't really run the op back at you, that is a huge advantage that you really should be taking. It's like teams not playing Astra. Like it's almost like Overwatch in that sense, where when you have those times where teams aren't playing those optimal heroes, it's such a huge advantage to have. That's why you often see the GOATS comp things happen, because if it's not so much GOATS is good against GOATS comp, it was if you run GOATS and the other team doesn't, you've effectively already won.
Yeah, it's like a 60-40 at least.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just such a huge advantage to have. I think for G2, the main thing as well is just how they play together as a team. Anya is and has been the best player that we've seen in Game Changers for G2, but more often than not, you could sort of see it in the play. Very selfish, a lot of hubris, I suppose, with how Anya was playing super aggressively. And I think that was a bit of a problem for how the rest of G2, who used to be ex-set, they used to play as a team and a solid part, having this individual come in and kind of play on their own and try to do all these theatrics, when sometimes just closing out the round is the better play. I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't see G2 in the finals of Game Changers 2, is because I think Anya got a bit too big, to be honest. Yeah. So they brought in Silly, who was more of an Astra player. It was just a more solid team play. And Juliana, who was mostly playing more of a secondary entry role, going over to stuff like the Jet and Arrays, had huge impact, was like the MVP of the tournament for that reason. So G2 have sort of moved away from being very G2, if that makes sense, to playing more as a team and more of a lineup. So seeing players like Mimi and Petra have a bit more impact and having a backbone means that if Giuliano doesn't really perform that well on the duelists, the rest of the team is there to follow up, especially when you look at the difference in assists for the most part across the team. Like, that is a coordinated team. It isn't just a one-woman army, if that makes sense.
Sure. We got a great interview, I think, with G2 Gozen after the victory here. Obviously, Mimi was theoretically the subject of the interview, but everybody got involved, so you can check it out now.
I believe the rest of G2 Gozen as well. Everyone is there in high spirit. Hi, Mimi. Welcome back to the show. Oh my God. has moves. I love it. I love it. Mimi, massive congratulations. You guys really deserve it. I'm so happy to see you guys happy. You know, I want to talk to you about your journey real quick because you played your first ever Valorant tournament at the end of May, beginning of June. So it wasn't that long ago. So how much does it mean to you to win such a major trophy in such a short amount of time?
Man, it means everything, obviously. You know, being the best female team in CSGO, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on us because, well, obviously we were the best FPS female team. So not winning like so many tournaments in a row was just, it was heartbreaking. But having to end the year with a fucking win, oh my God, it means everything.
Yeah, I think everybody expected you to win right off the bat, right? In Game Changes 1, everyone's like, they're going to be amazing. So how did you deal with, you know, like you said, not being able to show your true potential and get the #1 spot for 2 tournaments in a row?
Well, we knew already that we were behind a lot of the teams because they've been playing for so long and they knew all the, you know, all the small things that we still had to learn and we still had to get rid of all our CS habits. But yeah, I think that people mentioned, you know, we still had the aim, but this game is so much more about the mechanics and team play and the comps together. So we were definitely just lagging behind on that. And now finally we caught up and I think you can see it in our gameplay for sure.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's worth pointing out that, you know, G2 definitely felt like they started, you know, a little bit behind some of the rest of the region there. And a lot of people expected them to win, I think just of association with the team and also their pedigree and background from Counter-Strike. But, you know, it took them some time, but, you know, once they managed to get to the top, they were, you know, they looked pretty good doing it. Bit of banter, though, after the result of this. Oh, there's a lot of back and forth, I think, on Twitter about this. But obviously, you know, Jake Lucky, who has to keep just a very small toe dipped in every scene based on sort of what his job does, goes for the most obvious and typical take of ever. When are they playing against the NA counterparts? Yeah, a little bit of back and forth here. Tenstar, obviously not involved in the conversation, seems to think that Cloud9 aren't even close. And fair enough, I guess. You know, got to talk some shit. I think, and then Anidro got involved a little bit. So yeah, you'd love to see a little bit of shit talk.
I love it. I love it. The facts actually, you know,
ad as well there for AimLab. So
exactly.
It's also AimLab as well. That's important to know. Not AimLab.
Yeah.
Just be being pedantic, but it matters a lot to AimLab. I can tell you that much.
Fans, you muted in Discord, dickhead.
There we go.
He was being too on the fence that he had to mute himself and just shout some hot takes at the wall. Kind of.
Yeah, he couldn't allow it to escape. You know, his room.
Yeah. That's why he's so nice. It's just because when he goes off camera, like especially when we go to like interviews and other stuff, he just starts punching a pillow or something like that. He's just
I just grunted my power rack over in the back here now. So
yeah. I think I dislike. I understand why Jake did it, but I really dislike that sort of like C9 versus. I feel like it's almost like taking things in the wrong direction of what Game Changes is meant to be, at least as I understand it. Like, I don't really care who's the better team out of Cloud9 White or Tenstar or whoever. I want to see these teams almost be brave enough to go for those Valorant Champions Tour qualifiers, because really the only success for that so far has been C9 White, that has been in that position to kind of put themselves through the ringer a little bit. Like, Reddit likes to take those games that C9 White lose against like slimy bogeymen, and some people obviously want to be absolute neckbeards about it and sort of shit talk them, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it is still nice to see C9 White being involved in the ecosystem, not just the female only ecosystem, if that makes sense. That's what I want to see, because those top 4 teams can do damage in Europe just across the scene, and I want to see them constantly push themselves to be stronger and more competitive. To be fair as well, you've got this free event circuit as a new map is being added, and just after Chaos being added as well. So that's a very turbulent time to be setting up what comps and what maps and what agents you're going to play. But I just want to see more of that. They're like, all right, Tenstar Nova is really good. G2 Gozen is good. I want to see those guys playing the other tournaments as opposed to almost sort of going, oh, we're going to have champions, but just like the Valorant Champions Tour, but just for the female scene. That's not the point of it. It's to get those players with org backing to feel confident and to be competitive enough to go into a mixed system and do damage. I fully understand why like Game Changes 2 was meant to be like a mixed tournament, just because of how certain countries and regions view like trans people more than anything. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why they went for that. But I could also fully understand why they went back on it as well. So I feel like that's the important thing going forward for the region. And it's super exciting being involved in Game Changes and seeing it be so competitive, because it's only going to get better. And I can't wait to see them play against Cloud9 White, but that's not the end goal, I think, for this.
Yeah, I think
that's what I like. I still like the light-hearted banter though that goes on between the C9 and the Tenstar and the G2 and stuff
Jake,
like that, right? So
Jake Lucky's a fucking clown, and he caters to the lowest common denominator. So it's not a surprise that he picks a low-hanging fruit and tries to drive some sort of conversation around it.
I mean, as a fan of good, honest Valorant as well, it's just nice to see this kind of shit too, because when you're looking at the beginning of even the beta days of Valorant, when everybody was stuck in their own region, right? Because right now, Game Changers are in the same scenario as we were in when Valorant was first launched in the beta days and the Ignition series over the summertime. It's like TSM's owning the NA side. Then you have G2 that's owning the European side. And it's like, oh, we can't wait to see TSM and G2 play together on the international stage so we know what region's the best. So I think that storyline is still kind of cool in a sense of like which region is going to be the best, looking at the Game Changers once we finally have international LAN, hoping that we're going to have international LAN in 2022 for the Game Changers, as we currently do see in the VCTs in general. And then, of course, I do agree with Ryan in the end, too. It's like, after that's said and done, too, I do definitely want to see more involvement of this women's scene going into the circuit for the VCTs in Europe, at least, for the EMEAs. Southeast Asia, they're going to start building up those teams as well, just to see them compete and see how they fare in the general circuit, too.
Yeah, it's almost like Campus Clutch, right? Where it's like, it's good to have those kind of tournaments in for like a collegiate level, but you don't want to separate those teams and players away from the main circuit. You don't want to like almost like subcategorize people. I also think another thing to shout out is the South American region for Game Changers, because that's been popping off a lot. And from speaking to Boax, I don't know how to, I've never had to pronounce it at this point, but like she does a lot of stuff for like LATAM for the broadcast as well, so you might have seen her. Like, I think it comes as no surprise that the South American region can be incredibly sexist. So the fact that the tournaments is doing well and getting a lot of support from the community is really nice, both from a perspective of players, but also some of the talent as well. I think NA and EMEA for casting talent, we have some really great people that, and it's not related to like diversity, if that makes sense. Like they're good in their own right. So being able to see a region like South America be able to do that as well just goes to show how important it is. And at the end of the day, like Riot have always said it, like the idea is to make Game Changes in the end obsolete, not to make it its own separate circuit, but just to get the orgs involved, to have them feel like it's worthwhile financially to be involved with having big prize pools and circuits like this that are officially Riot backed. I also think the broadcasts have been great as well, like Freaks for You and NSG and Dignitas doing their event. Like they've all done a fantastic job. So I was very skeptical on Game Changers at the start of the year, but it's been good to not only see it come to pass, but also how fun it is to watch as well. Is EMEA behind in some aspects? Sure, but it's also 3 months into their first circuit. Like, if we go to EMEA for VCT, we didn't have broadcasts then at all. Yeah, exactly. We had like 5 people on talent, right? So there's still a long way to go, but it's a promising start.
I like that. I've been pleasantly surprised by it as well. I've been enjoying watching what I can of it so far. And okay, look, maybe in fairness, it's, you know, in lieu of you know, VCT challenges or champions masters content on these weekends, but I still enjoyed watching it either way. So, you know, that's whichever way you slice it, that's not a bad thing. Good job. We managed to turn a small show into a fucking 2.5 hour banger as per usual. Great stuff, guys.
God,
Vance,
man. What the fuck?
Ryan. Yep. We get blood out of a stone out here. That's kind of what we do. Nice job.
It's been fun. It's always fun to talk about these. I mean, I guess that's the fun part of our show, is that we could be very opinionated on our things, and it's free to go on tangents.
When are you going to start doing that, Vince? When's that?
Yeah. When are you going to start?
I mean, you're allowed to.
No, I just like going on tangents. You didn't let me finish the second part. I let you guys be opinionated. I go into tangents.
All right. Well, everybody has their function, I guess, ladies and gentlemen. Great to be here, of course. Big shout out to Tani as well for joining us on the show. I thought that was extremely illuminating and enjoyable interview. Ryan, thanks for being here again, mate. Great to have you back on the show. And we will we will catch you guys, of course, next week. We're really going to delve deep into Champions pre-hype next week. So prepare yourselves for that one, ladies and gentlemen.
Because I probably won't be on the show. I think Vision Strikers are going to win the tournament. I just want
to okay. All right, we'll make sure
I'm not
if we
going to explain
Preds,
why. I'm just going to leave on that. Bye,
if we do Preds, we'll put you in there. All right, thanks for joining us. See you next Tuesday. Ryan thinks Vision Strikers are going to win. What do you think? Let us know on Twitter. In the meantime, enjoy your Valorant. We'll be back next week.